Episode 104 of Lights Thunder Action is here. The She-Hulk finale broke the fourth wall, the fifth wall, the sixth wall, and it called out Kevin Feige. She's going to take on He Who Remains one day. I can see it. You can see it. Kang sees it in the realm of time itself. We're going to talk Werewolf by Night as well. And I think this is the week we sell House of the Dragon to JRB because Ethan Simmie is joining the show, and we'll see you all after the jump, yo. Welcome to
LTA with
TCR
and JRB.
This is where the fun begins.
You're just not thinking fourth dimensional.
Slowest. Peter 03.
Num num.
I'm vengeance.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
I love you guys.
Hold on to your butts.
If we find out you have personalized license plates, you die.
Dude, I almost had you.
To that I say, all right.
Good afternoon, evening. It's still spooky season 2022. And with that in mind, it is time for your Thursday night pick-me-up where two Thunder buddies dive into all things Marvel, DC, pop culture IP, and the latest happenings in the film industry.
On today's show, Thomas and I are joined by our very good friend Ethan Simmie of 15 Minutes of Marvel, so we can talk everything around the She-Hulk finale episode from the first season that dropped today. We'll also be talking a little Werewolf by Night since that came out last Friday, the day after we recorded our last episode here. And Thomas will undoubtedly recruit Ethan in his ploy to get me to watch House of the Dragon. Good luck with that, buddy. My walls are up. But before we get to all of that, Thomas, where can everyone find our show?
Your walls may be up, but we're going to break every single one of them down. The walls, the roof. If we have to come through the floor like a zombie and grab you and bring you down to the dragon pit, we will. But you can find us live streaming directly into your homes and phones via our LightsThunderAction Facebook page and the HWWS WebTV channel on Twitter and YouTube. All of those links can be found at Linktr.com/LightsThunderAction. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to view the live version of our show where you can interact with us. But if you don't want to look at our beautiful bearded faces, but you love to hear our beautiful bearded voices, JRB.
Then you can subscribe to our beautiful bearded voices on Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, and Spotify. Be sure to follow us on there too. Leave us a 5-star review, if you will, and ask us a question in that review, and we'll bring it right here on the show to answer it as soon as we get it. So, with that out of the way, Thomas, we have a lot going on. Since we last talked, we have multiple Marvel entries that have dropped. They all have big implications. I don't even know which one I'm more excited to talk about. What do you think?
What do I think you're most excited to talk about?
Ooh, better question. Yeah, let's start with that. Which one do you think I'm more excited about?
I think you're more excited about Werewolf by Night. I saw your tweets. So.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to say for you, I think that you're most excited to talk about neither because it's House of the Dragon, but it's probably going to be.
I hate you. You're so right. You got me. I'm building up all week. Literally, let me put it to you like this, JRB. This week, all I have thought about is House of the Dragon to the point that late Tuesday night, I went, oh yeah, tomorrow's Andor. Oh, I should probably get ready for the podcast tomorrow night. Totally slipped my mind. All I was thinking about was House of the Dragon.
Wow.
And then Andor happened. And all I can think about in terms of like building to next week is now Andor. Because She-Hulk ended. But all day today, all I've thought about is She-Hulk. We nerds are living in the precipice. This is like Fury's big week right now. You know what I'm saying? We got Werewolf by Night last Friday.
Yeah.
6 days ago.
Yeah.
Now, Sunday, a couple days later. I mean, you also got Rings of Power, but I've not been watching that. So shout out Rings of Power and Lord of the Rings fans. You're getting it too. But then House of the Dragon comes in with possibly the greatest episode inside the Game of Thrones universe of all time. And that's, I obviously is saying
Holy
a lot.
cow.
Like, it is that good. It was mind blowing and so emotional, more emotional in a single episode than I remember feeling about a single episode in Game of Thrones. In 8 seasons, they did it in 8 episodes. Like
Wow.
that's what I'm saying. It was powerful, man. And then, Andor happens, and Andor gives us the greatest episode of live action Star Wars possibly ever, but in my opinion, absolutely ever. Andor just crushed it. And then today, She-Hulk comes out and literally destroys every possible scenario we had in our minds, goes with breaking the fourth wall and just diving into absolute insanity. We nerds are living in Fury's big week, and I can't believe we are alive. And also, before we jump any further, it's my sister's birthday, so shout out to my sister. Thanks
Happy
for
birthday,
stopping.
TCR sister.
I'm so happy she stopped beating me up when we were kids. I don't know if I'd have gotten to my full height of 5'10", you know what I'm saying? I love you, sis. Happy birthday. I'm not going to tell everyone how young you are, but I could. Just know I love you, so I didn't. Real quick, JRB, how are you real fast? Before we
Let's get this out of the way real quick. JRB,
Yeah.
how are you?
JRB.
Yeah, my life's crumbling and falling apart, so moving on. No, I'm doing okay.
Fuck, man,
everything's going good.
You really hooked me there.
No, not really a lot to report on right now. Just another day in the life of JRB.
I'm sweating, bro.
World famous journalist, as you say. But no, things have been good. My fiance and I are still trucking along with our wedding planning. I'm moving out of my apartment in a little bit here at the end of the month, so got that to worry about too.
That's why it's falling apart. Moving sucks.
It's the worst. Yeah. But yeah, so it's everything is as good as it can be considering the circumstances. But thank you for asking.
You're welcome, man. We've already heard how good I'm doing, but it's time to ask the host of 15 Minutes of Marvel and one of the co-hosts of 24 Minutes of A24. We sent out the Simmie Signal and he answered the call. Ethan Simmie!
What is up, guys? I'm here. I made it.
Welcome back, my friend.
I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited to be here. Obviously, I got my Central and Pacific times mixed up and how those convert. And as soon as you DM me, Thomas, and you were like, "Where are you?" My boss called me and actually had a very important work call, and I was like, "It's all happening. This is the end of time." So I'm here and I'm ready to pod, guys. I'm ready to be a part of this.
Ethan, before we get too far, over the last week, what of the weekly streaming series that are going on or the premieres that happen, what have you been watching? What have you not watched? Maybe that might be easier to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I am in a precarious pickle because the last week has been my kind of week break in between sessions for grad school. So I'm currently going to grad school for film studies. And I was lucky enough that I got a week off in between sessions. I binged all 8 episodes of House of the Dragon. So I'm current on House of the Dragon. I finished She-Hulk today, so that would be another one. I, however, have not watched beyond episode 2 of Rings of Power, and I have not seen a single episode of Andor, contrary to how excited I am for Andor. And I know episode 6 was crazy because everybody on Twitter is saying it's crazy. I just haven't had the time. I've been trying to watch movies and catch up and do everything I've been putting off for the last 7 weeks of school. So House of the Dragon is the big one, man.
Oh, we're going to get him. Oh, we're going to get you there today there, Johnny. We're going to bring you in. We're going to drag you in.
I hope.
See, I'm glad Ethan Simmie's come in because he's just binged 8 weeks of House of the Dragon. So he's as prepared as he can be. He's ready.
I think last time I came on your pod, or one of the times, was for The Boys, and I was like, yeah, never seen an episode of The Boys. I would love to commit to talking about 3 seasons of The Boys. Yeah. And I binged the entire series of The Boys like the week before I came on the show. So both of you gentlemen enlist the best binge side of myself. So I appreciate that.
It's funny because I'm totally the opposite. Like, I really don't binge anything if I don't have to. Like, I like to space it out. Like, I'm still catching up on Superman and Lois, but I'm choosing to keep it to like an episode every 1 or 2 days. So like the fact that you're cranking out entire seasons of these shows in like a night is crazy to me, but you retain almost all of it. And I love getting to talk about it with you. So I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, I'm not one for the binge model, I will say. Like, don't get it twisted. I think the binge model is terrible, but House of the Dragon going weekly is really fun because, and herein lies my case for the weekly model, is enough people were talking about it on my Twitter timeline where I was like, I can't take this anymore. Every single Sunday, people are talking about House of the Dragon, and I am not, and I feel left out and very, very sad. And so it finally culminated, and I am current. And now for the next 2 weeks, I get to be part of this conversation instead of just being like, people talked about it for a day and now it's gone. I am now hooked and I am now a big fan of this show. So there you go. Case in point.
The FOMO is real, my friend.
Yes, it is.
I will add you to the Twitter meme send out list that I have created. It is growing week by week.
Yes, I want it.
The memes are glorious. Sometimes it's better than the episode. Not always. Not this week.
Nice.
They're great, but man, that episode was
sublime.
Sublime. Why don't we go ahead and jump right on into Werewolf by Night? JRB, I'm gonna let you take away this one. I feel like you probably retained the plot more than I did. I was just like, yeah. Oh, it's over. Let's watch it again. It's spooky season.
Yeah, I believe it or not, I've actually only seen it once since it came out.
Okay.
And it's not because I didn't enjoy it. It's just because I haven't really found time to watch it again. This was definitely a project that it's not something you're going to turn on and watch like whenever it comes about. It's going to be more of have to be in the right mood type of thing. Because this was one of Marvel's most unique entries. And that was kind of the point, that was the nature of it, was that they wanted to do something new and different. And the black and white style certainly wasn't the only aspect that changed with this MCU entry. But before we really get into it, Ethan, I wanted to get your overall thoughts just on upon your first watch. How did this hit you? Were you pleasantly surprised by this? Was it not what you expected? Like by the time the credits rolled, how did you feel about this project?
Yeah, well, I just watched it for the first time a few hours ago, and I finally got around to it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. I had heard some high praise, so I feel like I did have some pretty high expectations, but by the time that it ended, I think I don't know if I was necessarily as impressed or enthralled with like, yay, the MCU took a swing, because like they're starting to take swings, and like this is what they do, and
it's kind of what Phase 4 is.
Right. And that's kind of exactly, that is what Phase 4 is. And so I appreciate that, but I don't think it really warrants like a big freak out. I was more impressed by Giacchino's directing style. And I thought he had a lot of bright moments. I think there's a lot of eerie, long, seemingly one takes that feel very tonally adept to this project. His ability, obviously, to work in a very menacing and haunting score, I think is something very special about this project.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I love the fact that it is a special presentation. And I know we'll talk about that, but I think this is the magic formula. I think maybe, I don't know, this is a hot take, but I think Moon Knight could have been a very impressive special presentation. I think it was a lackluster series, and I know we want 6 episodes of Oscar Isaac, but it seems like, especially in this setting, we be essentially a single setting, right? I mean, inside of a house and then inside of a maze is where this took place. It was very compact. It was very confined. And I just found it quite delightful, honestly, and unlike anything we've seen yet.
I like that a lot. I love that now that we have this special presentation format, we're already seeing what projects could have benefited from that style rather than, breaking it up week by week. Because there are some stories they've told where the episodic nature of it really doesn't benefit some stories. I would even argue, like Miss Marvel, going week to week, there are moments where they leave you off when you need to continue on with that story, and having it in a single sitting would be a good idea for some of these things. And because of it, we're already seeing news of other future projects being released in a special presentation format. We'll get into that more in a minute, but let's get into the plot a little bit, because one of the most unique things about this was the monster hunter style of it. It's the fact that the MCU is introducing this new faction, and they open the movie by explaining, you're used to seeing the Avengers, and they show the silhouette of the original 6, and everyone from Iron Man to Hawkeye, the Avengers that we know and love. then they kind of pan like underground and you see this whole other world, and they're saying there's other parts of this you've never seen before. And that's when they start getting into like the monster hunting side of it. And they start explaining that this movie takes place following the death of a guy named Ulysses Bloodstone, who was an experienced monster hunter and the holder of the Bloodstone. And that following his death, that there are monster hunters that are going to compete to see who can kind of take possession of that Bloodstone and take over that role. And the Bloodstone is kind of like the new MacGuffin. It grants the user enhanced abilities anywhere from, physical strength to super speed and amongst other things. But I don't know. I think the most interesting part of this was that like there were characters with actual stakes in the Bloodstone. Like there was, a family drama, and then there was also, the mystery behind the main character, Jack Russell, who eventually becomes Werewolf by Night, but we get to kind of follow everyone else along that mystery of, who is this guy and what makes him so great? Why is his kill count so much higher than everyone else's? He seems like a normal, unassuming guy. Ethan, when you saw Jack Russell come on screen, I know we've seen plenty of promos for this. I have to say his performance was one of the strong points for me. What did you think of what Gael Garcia Bernal was able to bring to this performance?
Yeah, I think he understood the assignment, right? Like he got the tonality exactly correct for this one shot of a project here with his character, and force us to grow attached. And I think part of that does come with succinct storytelling, because we do get such a compact amount of storytelling in 45 minutes. We inherently have a stronger bond to this character than if we knew we were getting a next episode and then another and then another. But I think when he first comes on screen, he is so unassuming, and that is what makes the transformation into his werewolf phase so impressive and so startling, I think. And again, that like really fits in tonality wise with the show, because it is all about monsters. Like are the hunters the monsters? Is Man-Thing the monster? Like are the Bloodstones the monsters, right? Like and that is a much larger theme and idea that takes place in all sorts of movies and TV shows all of the time. But when he showed up on screen, he was so innocent and directly tied. You mentioned the kill count of like she, Verusa, the kind of the hostess of this situation, she essentially says, oh, and a whopping 57 kills, incredible. And everybody's like shocked and on. And then she goes, and he has 100. And then we move on. And she just kind of sweeps it under the rug. And I thought that was very interesting at first, a very interesting use of that kind of big point of dialogue, where he just is kind of like, yeah, I do. And like, doesn't get into it. And it's because he knows who he is. And so I think he does an excellent job. And him and Laura Donnelly, who plays Elsa Bloodstone, I think they have an excellent connection.
Oh, they were great.
And I think in the time span that we saw them, I think it worked quite well. And I was thoroughly impressed. And I was like, I'm game for more. Like, give me a special presentation. Like, let's set it up in another fashion. I want some more Werewolf.
Yeah. No, I think all around the casting was great. Thomas, do you have anything to add to that?
The way that they both paid an homage to the 30s, like style of acting, along with grounding it in our current reality and our current tone as actors, was I don't know how they did it, because it's two very different styles, but the way they did it was brilliant, and it's what drew everybody into the characters, especially I mean, for me, I was captivated by what they were doing with their eyes, with the little nuances of the acting and the little hand twitch here, the every now and then he'd do that, and it was so subtle in how it was done. That's what drew me in the most, and the black and white nature of it all really just kind of vacuums it down a little bit more, which makes the project feel so much grander than it would have in color. I think the black and white lends itself to being like, if this were color, let me put it like this. If this were color, I think people are like, oh, it's okay, but it's black and white, and it's released at Halloween, and it feels like a 30s.
It's spooky classic film. I mean, that opening narration, and now they gather to hunt the monster within. Classic and creepy.
Like it's amazing.
I wonder, can I say two really quick things? And I know my time, I already got called on, but the one thing that I wanted to say, I noticed that I'm positive they shot this on digital. There's no reason that Marvel would shoot this on anything but digital. But it looked like they have digitally enhanced some light pops and some grain, and to make it feel like a 30 style of film, which I thought was a really smart choice. And I am curious from like Giacchino's standpoint, and I think the moment that Jack and Elsa are kind of in that cage together, right, and he starts to smell her and says, "I have to remember you." Yeah. I'm really curious if Giacchino's directing style, it seems to me, really mimics and mocks his ability as a musician and as somebody that scores films to elicit these big emotional swells and rivets, because as we know with his score in The Batman, it is absolutely about swells. It is absolutely about emotional impact.
It's overwhelming at times.
Exactly. And so in this moment, I feel like it is designed for us to kind of go hand in hand with how a score would go, of like, they've had some run-ins and we've kind of had this choppy, and now we're getting this big emotional swell before we get the reveal. It's not after we get the reveal, and it's not like the reveal is it. It is more about, oh my God, is he actually going to kill her? Is he going to remember who she is? And thus we kind of get a very much more deep and intense emotional connection to these characters. So again, like, I just harken back. I'm very interested to see what Giacchino does next. And I know that they will give him another project or give him another build to do it. And I'm curious if other studios are going to reach out, and if that means feature lengths, if that means indie projects, like, what does that mean? But I think it's he sees things in a very unique perspective that we haven't maybe seen in the MCU yet.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique look.
One thing that I really love about that sequence that you're talking about is it builds up, and then when the transformation starts taking place, we're stuck with the fear on Elsa. We slowly zoom in on a single classic one shot, one take into her face, because we're with her like she's probably about to die. Like, that is the feeling we have.
Oh there. Yeah, just hugging the side of the cage like that, just sitting there the whole time, not even making eye contact with him, just just ready to accept her fate.
Exactly, and that's what ropes us in closer to feel more in line with Elsa in that moment, because we are the humans. We're humans on a couch, and she's a human in a cage with a human who's changing into a wolf.
Right.
And that is terrifying to think about. And the way that we focus in on her journey in that moment, because we've seen transformations how many times in movies? I mean, we saw fucking Todd do it today, that piece of shit.
Yeah.
So we see him all the
guy.
time. God, that fucking guy. So we see it all the time. So the fact that we're focusing on the horror of I might die in the next 30 seconds is brilliant from Michael Giacchino.
Yeah, absolutely. We skipped a lot to get to this point. So to catch us up where we are plot wise, the hunt itself takes place in a maze, a very large maze on the grounds of the manor that they're all meeting at. And we find out that the captured monster has the bloodstone actually implanted on it to weaken it. And these 5 experienced monster hunters, they have to compete to try to get that stone from the monster and slay the monster. And first one to do it takes possession of the bloodstone. What we soon find out after that is that the monster is Man-Thing, or as he's later called, Ted, which is adorable. We find out Jack Russell's true intention, which we kind of knew was not to slay that monster, but there was an underlying purpose. And we find out that he knows Ted and that they're friends and that he's constantly having to save him. So
allegedly,
allegedly, right. Yeah. But they meet up. Elsa Bloodstone kind of catches up with him and figures out what's going on, and he enlists her help to try to figure out, how to get Ted out of there in one piece. And in doing so, they try to get the Bloodstone off of him, and when Jack goes to grab it, it has an adverse effect, and everyone finds out that he is now a monster too. And that's how they end up in the cage where Elsa and Jack are both locked up. Then we get probably the best sequence in this. Jack has his transformation into Werewolf by Night, where it shows it off screen. We won't say that's for budget reasons, like it was for She-Hulk, which was hilarious. We'll get into that in a minute. But that shot you talked about, Thomas, where it pans in on Laura Donnelly's face, total 30s moment there, especially with, I don't want to call it overacting, but the expression, I see what you're saying, because if that was in color, I don't think it would have been received the same way. But because it had that black and white look, I think it had a really classic approach, and it was more accepted by the audience as not being too silly or overdone, But Ethan, I'm so excited to hear your thoughts on this following sequence, because obviously Werewolf by Night gets out of the cage and we get some MCU body horror. We get some gore. We get some blood. The camera gets covered in blood in this sequence. I want to leave the floor open to you, man, because I know that you like your spooky movies. I know that you like the body horror. There's some great movies that have come out this year that you've had amazing reviews on. But I want to know MCU's first, they're dipping their toes in it. It wasn't everything, but it was a lot more than what we're used to. What did you take away from this?
Yeah, I think it was done smartly. Obviously, covering the camera in the blood is really quite brilliant, because not only are we understanding that like we're just slaying people in this hallway, right? Like he's just laying waste to all of these people, but we as a viewer feel more constricted by his presence, right? We feel his presence is growing more and more powerful, because the less we can see of him, the scareder we are, the scarier it becomes to us, because he could be anywhere, right? If that camera ends up filling up with blood, like what does that mean for us? Like, right, we could be next. So like I think that is a really smart way that everything kind of plays out. And I loved a lot of the kills in this, especially in the maze. I mean, we get Elsa just like tearing people apart, and we get that kind of like shot through the chin for
I totally forgot about
Leorn,
that.
I believe is his character name. Yeah, it shot through the chin, and like he doesn't initially die. Like we listen to him labor and die in her arms. And so I think it was done really well. And we're going to belabor the point, but like the black and white is tasteful when it comes to this. It is a direct genre homage that Giacchino has chosen to do for this project. And I don't think it works other than that. We get a very, distinct thing at the end that I know you're going to bring up, where we do change to color, and that works for several reasons. But this moment, getting this blood, getting this intense nature, I think is really well done. And I think it goes back to like the introduction of Elsa as a character was done really well too, because the first thing we see of her is her mom and her basically bitching at each other and being like, we don't get along. You are literally your dad's biggest disappointment in his life. And she's like, well, whatever I do with the bloodstone is my choice. Like, it doesn't concern you. She tells somebody like, oh, why don't you check up your ass? And then I think her tone is really, which, funny, absolutely hilarious. Yeah. Also very much in line with the tone of like, this is serious. She does not give two Fs about what people think about what she does with the bloodstone. So my very long-winded answer, I think it was a great scene and I really liked it. And I hope that when the MCU decides to do this on a broader scale, it is as smart. I think there's a very distinct differentiation between doing something like that in a very tasteful manner and doing it because it's bloody, because it'll get people to talk about it. I think there's two distinct camps there.
Yeah, Michael Giacchino was on Phase Zero today, and he was talking a little bit about that. Like, he filmed all of it in color. He always wanted it to be in black and white, but he knew they had to film it in color. And so all the time he'd be like, you know what I'm thinking? And they're like, more blood. We know. And so he was talking about how he didn't get denied anything. A lot of the stuff we saw, a lot of the kills especially, were like last minute, like, oh, well, we can fit this into the shot, and why don't we do this, and why don't we do that? Okay, sure, let's just do it. We have time. And they would film it, and that's what ended up making the cut. And on the third rough cut, that's when he showed Kevin Feige the black and white, and Feige goes, well, I guess we had to do this in black and white, right? And that just goes to show the vision he had. If you want something to be done, you focus on it, you make it happen. And he wanted it to be black and white. I don't know if we'll ever get, and I'm being dead serious, I don't know if we'll ever get another black and white thing in the MCU. Like, it's insane that the only black and white thing we've gotten, like, consistently and probably ever, is set in modern day and not in the 40s when Captain America was. Or further in the
past. We had WandaVision. We had the first 2 episodes of WandaVision in black and white.
You're right. We did.
And those are technically set in like the 50s. Or
I just lied to everybody.
I guess they're technically set in modern day, but they're hallucinatory of, whatever.
You're right, man. I just lied to everybody. I'm so sorry.
No, but I think your
But you're
point is
right, yeah.
valid. Like, are we going to get anything black and white in the future that warrants this style of tone? I doubt it. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
I don't
I
know.
love
Yeah,
Ted.
it's I think
love
it
Ted.
it,
Yeah.
it totally depends on the context. But Ted, I love that we got to see Ted in full color by the end of it. But
The eyes.
Yeah,
the eyes,
are-
man, the
yeah,
eyes.
very cool.
Man, Ted was one of my favorite elements in this. There's not really a lot left to the plot. Like as
No, I
everyone
think we
knows,
just
it was
got
only 53 minutes,
change.
including the credits. So like there wasn't a whole lot left to talk about here. But
I've got 2 points, and it's going to segue into the final action sequence, or the final sequence of this episode. The first is we get the Marvel fanfare, and it's going, and then it changes, cuts to black and white, cuts to that gritty film look, and the score changes from modern day to a 1930s hit. And I was like, yeah! And then they start going the werewolf slashes with the ah! And I'm like,
Love
oh
it.
my God, it's Halloween, baby. Let's go.
I think
that was
that
awesome.
proves Giacchino as well, because we get that record player that is shown multiple times throughout this episode.
Mhm.
That is his way of luring us as an audience member into this 1930s homage, right? Of like,
Yep.
oh, it is set in modern day, but guess what? It's playing on a record player, and like that's his score background. It's so
Mhm.
interesting to see how he uses that as like a tent pole item in the episode to transport us to a different time.
Michael Giacchino, I think, is the only person to do multiple different versions of the Marvel fanfare in a different vibe. He did the electric guitar in Love and Thunder. He's
Oh,
done this
nice.
1930s version here. If I'm not mistaken, he had a slightly different one for No Way Home as well. Like it was a little bit different key. I might be wrong. But for the most part, all the other Marvel studios outside of, if I'm not mistaken, Miss Marvel might have been the first one where it threw in the Pakistani kind of Middle Eastern vibe of the music and the, what is it called? A sitar, maybe?
Sitar, yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe. There's an instrument that I'm like, yeah, it makes that sound, and I can't remember the name. It might be a sitar.
No, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Good job, 15-year-old brain. But you're right. That record player leads us into, I mean, Elsa Bloodstone is just looking at the Bloodstone. The only color we have for like the whole thing is the Bloodstone itself, which I think just adds to the power. WandaVision vibes, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You're right there.
100%.
And then it just opens up and the color hits somewhere over the rainbow. And that's how we get color again. And it's like, oh my God, like that made me cry. I'm not a huge Wizard of Oz fan, but when I was a child and I saw that, I was like, how did they do that? I was so blown away with how they went to black and white and color, because I'd seen black and white and I'd seen color, but I'd never seen them put together. And I was like 6 or 7. So it blew my little wannabe filmmaker mind. And in this, it's just like, wow, oh yeah, this is now modern day. Like, yes, this has been modern day the whole time. You can see it, you can feel it with the way the red pops here, the way she smirks over here, and then it cuts to Ted and Jack waking up, and you know, the record player's still going. He's playing cards. Probably Ted's playing solitaire with himself. You know, he's got to pass time out there.
Some big cards too. I don't know if you saw. They looked
Yeah,
massive.
they were big, man.
You got to fit in
Those
his
are
hand.
Hulk size cards right there. And we get some back and forth dialogue. It's like, oh, no, I'm the one who saves you, friend. Okay, you might be right. And then it's like, is she okay? Ah, good. No, I don't know if we'll be running into her again. It's like, okay, Jack Russell Terrier.
History says you probably will. But yeah, Ethan, what did you think of the switch from black and white to color? It had some surprising like hidden meaning in it, but what did you take away from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's genius, because why does that switch work in The Wizard of Oz? It's because it shows us what is so fantastical about the world that we are in, right? It shows us that even though this is something super out of the ordinary and something that is super glamorous, it is something that is attainable, right? And so like to have this black and white world and to be like, oh wow, that's crazy. Like I would never, be able to go to this place or see these things or whatever. And then now it's in color, we can relate to it a lot better. So we get this big switch. I think it was genius to do it with the song. Obviously a direct pull from Wizard of Oz, obviously. And then getting to see, I think, all of the details, especially what stood out to me is I believe Elsa's wearing a red leather jacket, and I think that really kind of like deepens the meaning to her character even more of like, didn't know she was wearing a red jacket. Like I'm curious what all these other costumes would have looked like in color, right? Like what were the colors that some of these people were wearing? I'm curious if it was, like sigil style or like house style of, we got the black and the golds or whatever, because in the very beginning we understand that his makeup is for, representative of his family. So I'm curious what that would have been like. But I think it's a really smart thing to do. And I liked it, but I'm sure people have complaints of like the very MCU-ification of, the final scene of, oh yeah, I'll get you some sushi. I owe you that much. And like, I thought it was cute and I thought it was well-deserved. Like it kind of like was a nice palate cleanser to end with. But I can definitely see some people saying like, oh, that broke the tonality for me or whatever. But I thought it was great. I love sushi, so that was
yeah, it definitely did make you go, oh right, this is an MCU project when that scene came around. At first it was the visuals, then it was the dialogue, and you're like, okay, this feels very familiar now. And I as much as I want to say it didn't take me out of it, it did just a little bit. But once I was able to sit with it for a little bit, it made more sense, because they have to instill that little bit of hope that like, hey, this special presentation actually means something to like general audiences, like you can expect to see more of these characters. Like this is not just a one-off thing. We're setting this up so we can use these people. And I think more than anything, after my first and only watch so far, despite the title, I really think that this is a project focused on Laura Donnelly's Elsa Bloodstone as much as it is Jack Russell, if not more. Because she comes into this with a very black and white perspective of monster hunting. And she meets a guy, Jack Russell, who kind of treads that line, and he's a little bit of both. And by the end of the show or the presentation, she has the stone, everything turns to color, and she has this new perspective of, oh, it's not so black and white here, where I just worked alongside a monster to help save another monster, and neither of them tried to kill me. They were actually helping me and defending me. And if she's going to be Elsa Bloodstone, the monster hunter going forward, having that unique perspective, she may be the first person ever holding that stone thinking that way, Right. She probably is. Yeah. And so having that experience right off the bat, right as she's taking possession of this thing, that's going to start a whole new epic for this Bloodstone, where Elsa, I think, is going to be a really important player going forward because she's going to change a lot of things and how things have been done. I don't think she's going to be anything like her father.
Yeah. Can I ask both of you one question? I'm going to backtrack just a second, JRB, to the sushi bit. So this is probably the closest, if I'm not underthinking this is probably the closest MCU project that we have gotten that is a full send tonal commit, right? Like it strays from the general MCU funny bits in the most dark way possible. But it didn't do it. It couldn't do it. It could not be self-contained without containing an MCU joke
it was
at the
so
end,
close.
right? Of like
so close,
including this. Why do you think that is? Do you think that is by design? Do you think that is a Kevin Feige choice to be like, hey, we got to rein it in for some people that are not, really into this tone? We got to give them some kind of morsel or tidbit. Do you think it's because like literally the writers' rooms just like can't not be funny? Like I'm genuinely curious because I don't have an answer, and that was my biggest gripe with some of the shows that we've gotten in the past is like, stick to your tone. Like stop trying to be funny, stop trying to be MCU, just do what you do. And so I'm curious because I don't know.
I thought it fit well. It was the same kind of rapport that Jack Russell has with Ted when it's black and white. It's that same friendship rapport, and it's also kind of the same tone of, where's her medallion? Have you checked Ross? Like it's within that same realm to me that it's sitcom in the way it's situational to that character, those characters specifically. It's not like, oh, gut busting laugh or like breaking the fourth wall. It's just like, you're right. I owe you that much at least. You're right. Thank you, buddy. It's like friendship, and it's not the only Marvel reference that's snuck in there. If you watch Man-Thing chasing Elsa, go back and watch the first Avengers movie. It's the exact same as Hulk chasing Nat. the exact
Interesting.
same movements, the frequency, the speed that it's done at is a little faster here. I caught that on my second watch. I was like, why does this look so good and familiar? Avengers. Ha.
Wow. It's like a
Interesting.
decade old. Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I think more than anything, it was just brand recognition because like you said, the MCU, they just can't help it. They have to have this stuff in it. I like, Thomas, what you're saying. It's true to the character. The problem is we don't know that character well enough yet. And I think that this was an instance where they're trying to get us to, where they want us to understand the dynamic between him and Man-Thing.
Okay.
And, you know, as well as we did get that just when they were in the maze. I don't know why, but I guess they felt it was necessary to add that one extra little instance where you can see that they're really buddies and that they're, you know, truly, you know, kind of just trekking through life, taking it as it comes, as, you know, two fellow monsters. So I kind of liked it because it made it feel a little more raw. Like these are two guys just trying to exist, you know?
Yeah.
But coming out of the experience you had just watched, it is off-putting. It does feel like a record scratch almost, where you're like, wait, this is totally out of left field for what we just watched. So yeah, you're right. Out of anything in this, that's probably what's going to hit the most mixed reviews is that last little instance where, you know, you could have just rolled the credits, you know, but yeah, good question though. Really good question.
Fair point for both. I totally understand. Yeah.
What did you think of the lack of a post-credit scene?
Can I swear on this podcast? I forgot to ask you guys.
Oh, we encourage it.
I don't fucking care about post-credit scenes at all. I literally don't care. I am so JRB, and it's nothing against you. I love you, dude.
No, I get it. I get it.
I am so, and you just ripped the lid off of the brewing. I am so sick of people caring about post-credit scenes. I just don't care. I just like don't care if we get one or not. I think, especially in this project, there is no need. There is no warrant for like anything regarding Elsa or what comes next or the Bloodstone or any of that. I think it was a smart choice to keep it self-contained, because then you can truly genuinely see if people want more of this character or if they do not attach to the project. And I think that is a smart choice. And instead of putting a nail somewhere and saying, okay, we got to come back to Werewolf by Night, we got to pin him on the board somewhere, I think it just like leaves things open. Like if he comes back, he comes back. If not, then not. And I think like we're going to talk about She-Hulk. The biggest issue I have with like people and She-Hulk is like, there was no post-credit scene this week. What the hell is Marvel doing? And it's like, it was a fine episode. Like, let's just sorry, JRP. But hey, I told you unleashed the monster, man.
Hey, it's not so much the fact that there wasn't a post-credit scene. It's the fact that they made me expect that there would be one. That's where I take issue with it.
That's fair.
But yeah, anyway,
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't even look for a post-credit scene on Werewolf by Night. You could have told me there was a post-credit scene, and I'd have been like, "Are you fucking serious?" Because no way. It lit like the color. It's switching to color. I'm like, oh, there's no need for a post-credit scene. Like that's brilliant. That's all I wanted. I wanted to see Man-Thing, Ted, in fucking green and red. Like I wanted the colors. And they gave me that, and then it ended, and I turned it off and went to work. And then I watched it the other night, and it gets to the credits, and I'm like, turn it off and go to bed. Like, didn't even look for a post-credit scene. I'm glad there wasn't one, because I would have felt left out if I missed it.
Yeah. Just for the record, I agree. I didn't think there needed to be one either, but that's okay.
Nice. We got him.
You know what he does. He thinks that he also doesn't need there, Ethan.
Oh, no.
What's that?
House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon.
Here we go.
Before we move on fully,
we're 43 minutes in.
I just saw the comments. David Nestor said Werewolf by Night is the best thing Marvel has done. He's here in spirit. Told us to have a fun pod. You're not here, but you're listening now. We will. Thank you.
I'm gonna ask per David's question. He says this is or I guess his comment. This is the best thing Marvel has ever done. Where does this rank for you guys in like the MCU TV scale? I don't need you to like rank all of them. I just am curious. Like
that's tough because like
where does is this upper third, middle third, bottom third in terms of like MCU Disney Plus shows, specials, whatever?
It's the best special ever. but I will say it's top half to top third. It is perfect. I don't have any flaws with this show. With this, can't say that about any other project from Disney Plus, Marvel.
Wow. I mean, it's definitely upper half for me. I was intentional about not like ranking it because it is very much its own thing in its own medium. It's a new format for them. It's not really something that can fairly be stacked against MCU movies like The Avengers or something like the Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but it definitely is, in my opinion, one of the better quality projects they've done because, like you said, they've really committed to that tone. And even though they didn't make it a full send where through and through it was just that, it was mostly that. And up until the final sequence, they really did dig deep into something that had previously not been done. So for that, I really appreciate it. And even not even considering the effort, like just the project by itself is very well crafted. So upper third, I would say. I think it would make like the top like 12 or 15.
I can dig that. Yeah.
Of your whole
like
ranking.
MCU, the whole shebang.
Of everything, yeah.
Ah, that's impressive.
I think
like
it could
that.
make it up there.
Hey, man.
I make a pretty conscious choice not to do one grand ranking of like TV shows and movies
Gotta
together.
keep
I
them
try to keep
separate.
my movies separate because they are very different forms of storytelling. I think this benefits so well because it is so contained, right? Like I think there are far less opportunities to experience an up or experience a down. So like risk mitigation in terms of like how much you care about a certain scene or a certain character or whatever it is, because you only spend a certain amount of time. I am curious for future special projects if they work as well. I think part of why this worked so well is because it was a 2-location situation. It didn't have us jumping cities or countries or character groups or side stories. It was exceptionally honed in, and I'm curious if they keep that format with any special future presentations. But yeah, I think like top third of TV shows is totally fair. I think episode 3 and 6 of Loki are still the best thing Marvel's ever done. So
Loki really did just bat 1,000 every week.
Pretty much.
It felt like Loki had very few weak spots. So
that was a special time. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the bar, and Werewolf by Night, it's getting close.
Yeah,
it gets up there.
Yep.
I would say Loki season finale, Werewolf by Night, Andor episode 6.
Ooh, okay. So I gotta watch Andor because that's pretty high up there, man.
And I'm not. And there's a whole 2 episode. There's a whole episode of Kenobi and Vader fighting. It might not make my top 5. It probably does, just because I can't think of another one right now that like hit me real hard. But right now it's number 4, and it's a tier level or 2 below. Like,
wow,
elite storytelling, captivating characters. Like that's what all 3 of those top 3s I just mentioned represent.
I'm shocked you don't have WandaVision on that list, because when I think of like storytelling and character development, I think WandaVision.
I don't have a single episode from WandaVision that hits me like that. Why. Like it's the whole thing, together. Maybe episode 4 with Monica, but I'm a Monica stan, so that's also heavily biased.
That was also our like first exposure to like a post Endgame story too. So that was so cool to see.
It's also it's very loaded. But I said that, but I'm also a Kang stan, so it's very biased on.
Let's go
Loki season.
You guys see Jonathan Majors and his photos for Men's Health Mag? Oh my god, goodness. I'm hot thinking about it. Woof. He can rule my dynasty any day.
He's yoked.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot wait to see him. What is it? He's Clubber Lang's son in Creed, and you can fucking tell he's Clubber Lang's son.
It's insane.
He looks incredible.
I can't wait to see Warrior King, but you know who Warrior King? We're going to pivot here, Ethan, because I just realized our longest discussion is going to be She-Hulk. There's only one character right now that can take on Kang and He Who Remains one-on-one, and it's the fourth wall break-in, green, beautiful lady that is She-Hulk. She took out Kevin, is how I'm pronouncing it, with the period. So let's dive into the She-Hulk finale. We set up House of the Dragon. Sorry, fans, skip to the end of this episode and we'll do that. But I don't even know. We'll start with like overall thoughts, and then I'll like run through this fucking plot really quick to a point. Then we'll chat, and then we'll run through again because I have like some gushing to do, this made me exclaim at 5:30 in the morning, which is rare for me to. It's rare to get me to talk or to yell, "Let's fucking go!" It made me do that twice in this episode, at the beginning and at another point in time. So, Ethan, Simmie, what did you think of this episode overall? Whose show is this?
By far and away the best episode of the series. I think for very specific reasons, and one of those reasons is because it finally fully utilized its ability to be aware of itself, right? We're getting hints of it throughout the entire series with the fourth wall breaks and the meta nature, and it literally just completely pivoted and just went full send on this thing. I was shocked. I felt like a kid in a candy store. I was like, this is probably the coolest thing that Marvel has ever done. And it is absolutely not going to be for everybody. And I totally understand that. But like, the meta nature of this show already is smart. And its ability to then leverage that to take it to another level and have a fucking robot named Kevin orchestrating everything is incredible. And it's genius. And I thought it was a lot of fun, and I just commend the show and the showrunners and the writers for understanding what makes the MCU great and also what makes the MCU poisonous in an aspect. So I think it tackled both those things really well, and there were a lot of fun moments. Overall, I wasn't a huge fan of the series, but I think this episode is exceptionally special.
Amazing. Thomas, let's go ahead and run through the plot of this episode. As you know, it's another 35 minutes, so it wasn't any
What about,
longer
hold on,
than-
what about your overall thoughts?
My overall thoughts, I was going to wait to get into because there are so many elements of this show that I love that were showcased in this finale, but then there's also like things that like I didn't love, and I'm really excited
specifically.
In the finale specifically, yeah.
Oh,
like
I'm very interested.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to like actually get into this discussion because like I know that we're gonna have really different viewpoints about a couple of these things. So, Thomas, let's start running through the plot. But first, I want to hear. I know you were screaming this morning. You sent me a message and you basically just said "fucking She-Hulk, man." So I know that this hit you in a good spot. But coming out of this finale after your first watch, what were you feeling? What were you thinking after She-Hulk finished up?
After the first watch, holy fucking shit, I'm so happy I have time to watch it again. I watched it back to back. I might have skipped to see if there was a post-credit scene. I might have just restarted it. I don't fully remember what. Yeah, I watched the post-credit scene and then was like, hell yeah, and just instantly hit restart.
Wow.
Absolutely loved it. It started off with grasping my attention as an 8-year-old little boy when I used to watch the Incredible Hulk show with my family off and on.
Yeah, that intro was awesome.
When they hit the intro, it's like I'm like, oh, they're doing it. They're doing the thing. This is where the thing comes from, and the promo, and oh my god, and the juxtaposition and the Savage She-Hulk. Like,
I love that they hired a practical actress for Savage She-Hulk instead of using the CGI one. They had like
that's her stunt double, like her body double in the show.
I believe so.
Yeah. Oh, really? It looks different than the girl that was in the wedding episode. Wow. Okay, so does she have multiple stunt doubles? She probably does. She probably has like 3 or 4. Yeah, no, it was so cool to see that because like it really was reminiscent of that 70s show or not that 70s show, but the 70s, the Incredible Hulk show where
I know what you meant.
It wasn't, there was no CG in it. It was all practical effects. And to see someone painted green and raging out was pretty awesome.
Absolutely. And it just kind of sets you up with, oh, this show is going to be like, from that moment forward, I was like, all right, this episode is going to be different. Like, let's see where it takes us because
very much so,
because that is fucking so perfect. Jen's life is falling apart. Everyone publicly hates her. Fucking Dennis, man. Fuck Dennis. He said that they dated and she was psycho.
Yeah,
and the part that pissed me off the most, which I can't believe I'm saying that, the whole thing did. I blame her grandmother. How dare you hate on Grandmama Walters like that? Like, you never met her. She's dead. You're talking shit about a dead woman, Dennis. Fuck you.
Terrible guy.
Terrible guy. Nikki gets a video of Jen dancing in college, posts it on Intelligentsia, and gets invited to a special event by Hulk King. Pug reluctantly infiltrates said event to find out that fucking Todd is Hulk King. That piece of shit.
This would have been an incredible first fuck for MCU. I'm not even gonna lie. If Jen looked right at the camera and was like, "Fucking Todd," you know how many people would have lost their minds and been like, "Genius! This is incredible." That could have been it.
Could have been.
Let it be known.
Next time for sure. Along this while, Jen has decided, fuck it, I'm going to Emil's ranch because he said anytime, so this is a time. She's at Emil's ranch, and Emil is actually the guest speaker at this Intelligentsia event, unaware, I should add, of what the gathering is actually about. I just love how he
was awesome, by the way, because
so positive. Like,
yes,
he's like, I've been told, and he really reminded me of Korg here, like more than ever. I've been told that you're all hitting great success in your journey. So huzzah! No, what was it? Take no. There's no answer. Damn it! They say something that I'm just like, what? That is so wrong. Like, take no for an answer or something like that. I don't remember, but they were chanting it, and I'm like, that is rape waiting to happen.
Not great advice.
Not great advice at all. And then before I get to Jen walking in, I really got to say, they disrespected Jane and the Mighty Thor before this, which brings into a whole lot of questions on the timeline. A. B. Don't you fucking dare disrespect the Mighty Thor, Jane Foster, Padme, or Natalie Portman, dude broads inside of a show. So you're not even real. Why am I mad? Anyways.
Did I miss something? How was Mighty Thor dissed? What did I miss?
Oh, they say, Oh, She-Hulk. Oh, and Lady Thor. She just sucks. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
They were like, oh, I would be saying this if she was a man too. She just is way lamer than Thor.
Okay, I know. I heard that. Yeah, I heard that part.
Might have been when I went, I was very mad when this episode started. I was like, she deserved better, but man, does it pay off in the end. Jen walks in, shit hits the fan, Emil protects Jen, Todd turns into a fucking Hulk, Titania bursts in, then Bruce busts out of nowhere and tries to attack Abomination, saying, "Drop my cousin, asshole." Then Jen saves the day with the most elite fourth wall break of all time.
Ever. It'll never be topped.
Never be topped.
At least not in the MCU.
Do we care about anything that happened before this moment?
No.
We want to talk about. Okay.
It was all just fodder to get to this moment, right?
So was the Marvel did. Okay, real quick. Did anybody question whether they'd actually hit a wrong button?
No. I was close. I was close. I was like, hold on. Did something go wrong? Like very WandaVision, right? Where you're like,
yes,
okay, please wait, because this is not right. It doesn't feel right.
Please stand by. What's going on here? I had my little remote in my pocket, so I thought I'd leaned over and hit a button. I was like, oh shit. And then she's like, hold on, don't do that to me. And I was like, oh, it's in the show. Oh, okay, that's good. Took the phone. I was like, let's for safety put you over here. And then
did anybody have this on their bingo card? Like, did you have this happening like on your She-Hulk prediction bingo card?
No. And if anyone says they did, they were a part of the writer's room, or they're liars.
Exactly, they're liars. Nobody would have thought this would happen.
So the Marvel Disney Plus page pops up, and she then busts out of her She-Hulk graphic, looks around, scrolls for us, and then goes, "Oh, there it is, assembled. Let me just hop down here." She hops in to the assembled show into our universe, it seems, multiverse, walks into the writer's room, and then She-Hulk goes over how dumb the storylines are, complaining that they both feel derivative and overdone, and says that she's going to see Kevin, which everyone finds super fucking funny. And what is it? I would die to protect Kevin, I think is what it said. She powers through security, enters Kevin's chambers, and it's not Kevin Feige. It is Kevin. I don't know the acronym. Is it in the article there, JRB?
It stands for...
I have it if you
Knowledge
need it.
Enhanced Visual Interconnectivity Nexus.
Yes. And
Nexus. WandaVision.
Nexus being. Kevin is a Nexus being.
You're right. Yeah, when they said Nexus, I was like, ooh, it could be a Nexus being, or it could be the Nexus point.
Another WandaVision parallel.
Which is an incursion point. And there's a question that we'll get to, but I'll say it now. Did Kang make Kevin?
Oh,
Okay,
shit.
I really
Yep.
like that theory actually.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
Did Kevin?
I mean-
did Kang make Kevin as like
Look,
a
Why would Kang?
sacred timeline manager?
Yes,
I
sir.
don't-
Yes, sir.
I don't want to get into too like lofty of ideas here, but if the way that this opens up, and I don't want to derail you, Thomas, but the way that this opens up the MCU to essentially anything is possible after this makes me really interested in that Kang theory, because if that is the case, you could then jump to and say the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it, has just been one grand illusion that Kang has created in order for his doings to not be monitored, tracked, or videoed or shown to us. I think there's a lot of different like really big brain stuff you could go from there, but I think that's why I like the episode so much. Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, it happens and they start talking, and I'm like, okay, Kevin is he who remains. You love to see it happen, and you
Man,
love
you guys
to
are
see...
getting like so in depth on this. The
Jeremy's like,
thing
Kevin, it's just a robot, man. It's just
the
a
thing-
robot.
I'm not gonna lie. The thing I liked more than anything was the fact that he's wearing a little hat like Kevin Feige. Like he's got like a little.
Exactly. Okay, so,
I didn't even
so
notice
this is
that.
interesting. Wasn't there an interview or there was a quote or something from somewhere? I
Yes.
read it this morning, and I was like, I don't understand this, because I had not seen She-Hulk yet. But it was the fact that Kevin Feige was like, should he be wearing a hat? Like, doesn't
Yeah,
that
he was
seem
like
to
confused
kind of
by it. Like
break
he didn't get the joke.
Yeah. And they're like, wait, the hat is what you're concerned about? You're not concerned about the robot. You're concerned about the hat? And like,
and
what
he
the heck?
literally goes, "Yeah,
Yeah. That's the line for him.
Classic
He's like,
Kevin
no,
Feige.
cannot wear a hat.
That's I until this moment I didn't realize he was wearing a hat. I was so deep in the colors and being like, he's Kang. That, yeah. Thanks for bringing me
big
back
HAL
down to earth.
3000 vibes with the red eye, though. I will say, I like that.
Absolutely. And I like how it rotates, and it reminds me of a Star Wars droid. Oh my god, it'll come to me eventually, but it's not right. Oh, I see it, but I can't name it. Anyways, they have a great discussion. She transforms back to Jin. Actually, Kevin says transform back to Jin, but do it off camera. The visual effects team has moved on to another project. The Wakanda drums pop in, and
Yeah.
I noticed that the second time.
No,
not
I
the
didn't hear
first
that.
time. Yes. Yeah.
It's
Like
just for
they're
a
working
second.
on another. It's literally, and then it's instantly being
Whoa.
talked over by someone. It's like, thank you. Yes. We're working on a lot of things going forth.
Which is
They have
kind of
a-
cool because that does break the fourth wall again to acknowledge that that's the next MCU project. So like,
Yeah.
That's sick.
it's cool that like it is still keeping us like in the loop even during their conversation. It's breaking the fourth wall for us.
Mm.
That's sick.
They have a great back and forth, and She-Hulk levies all the internet complaints at Kevin. I love the line where she's like, "Isn't this a legal comedy?" And it's like, if that's what you want to call it, then can I present my closing arguments? Ha ha! I see what you did there. Proceed. And then she
That's
just
peak
goes on.
MCU comedy bait right there, honestly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I really enjoyed the most is that up to this point, it's really not that legal of an episode. And at that moment, she sits up, and I'm like, oh,
And
she
this
just hit
becomes her
lawyer mode.
courtroom.
Yeah.
Exactly. It becomes the courtroom. We are the jury. Kevin is the judge. And I mean, in this case, he's also the jury and the executioner. He can do whatever he wants here, but we're there with her, rooting on her, supporting. Be like, you're right. Fuck Todd. He doesn't need to be a Hulk. He needs just a dick bag.
Mhm.
Why is Titania here? Fuck it. We'll leave her. Why is Bruce here? Send him back to space. I love the little reference that they have going on there. Which is, no, but he has to explain why he's no, I don't care. But he's got to save it for the movie. That is a line we'll come to in a
May
minute.
have
Yeesh.
just sneakily announced the
Confirmed.
World War Hulk movie.
World War Hulk
I mean, they said that, and I was
Let's
like,
go.
they're
Movie?
saying it. Movie? And then we go forward, and essentially, I want Emil to be responsible and take accountability for his actions. So he goes from, gets dropped down, and then it comes down to some of my favorite little beats here. I wouldn't mind seeing Daredevil again. A woman has needs. Historically, we've been light in that department.
Yeah.
Which I mean, hilarious. Daddy issues. Can we talk about the MC? What's the deal
my
with
gosh.
daddy issues? Tony Stark, daddy issues. Thor, daddy issues. Loki, same daddy, same issues.
Star-Lord, two daddies,
Two
both
daddies,
issues.
two issues.
Yeah, two issues. And when are we getting X-Men? And that is where this picture comes from.
Oh,
Just
I love that. My favorite beat in the episode. When are
It
we
is-
getting X-Men?
It's literally it's a candy shot for Kevin Feige. He can
Yeah.
do anything he wants right here
Yeah.
and make it play and make it work because of Jen and Tatiana Maslany and the way that her character is established and the tone of this show. He can literally just do anything like that. We say, when is the X-Men coming? And then she says either right before or right after something about Smash. And then she's like, oh yeah, I'd like to see Matt Murdock in here too. And then like winks at the camera. And it's like, I love horny Marvel. Like, this is incredible stuff. And we could just keep it coming all day long. It's great.
Yeah, it's what did she say? You're ruining a very great algorithm. That's what Hulks do. That's what we do.
Yeah,
Hulk
we smash
smash. Bruce smashes. Hulk smashes. I smash the fourth wall, and sometimes Matt Murdock. Like, come on,
Incredible.
it's fantastic.
Wonderful.
It's fantastic.
Wonderful.
We cut to the thing, and it's basically this end scene. Everything's wrapping up. She-Hulk walks up, and now I get to deal with you. Just do it. He says, just do it. And she shrinks down and says, I'll see you in court, babe. Oh, call me babe anytime. But like, seriously, not in a I'm a Todd kind of way. Matt Murdock shows up, and then they basically just go to, oh, can we talk about everyone in this scene being like, oh, Daredevil, hi Daredevil. And then it leads to everyone at the, in Jen's family being like, Matt Murdock. Wow. Hi, Matt Murdock. Like,
Yeah,
oh, he's got his
everyone
own
loves Daredevil.
I love that.
Everyone loves Daredevil. Everyone loves Daredevil. Everyone seems to hate She-Hulk. That's some bullshit. But I love Pug in this whole episode. But I love he's like, wait a minute, are they?
Yeah,
a
he's
thing?
funny.
Are they? And it's like, oh, they still got it on. Catch up, Pug. When he talks about calling the Hulk, he's like, I tried to sound pretty calm considering I was calling the freaking Hulk. But Matt Murdock meets the Walters family. Every lady is hitting on him. Her father asks if, he can pay for kids, if that's paying, because, raising kids in LA is expensive. He's like, I didn't think this is how the conversation going. Matt, get ready, because that's how every conversation in our family goes. And hilarious. I love the dad. He's probably the best part of their family to me. And that's including the Incredible Hulk, DJ Incredible Hulk, excuse me. But then Bruce shows up and introduces his son with the seriously worst haircut I've ever seen in my life.
Horrible haircuts.
But I will
brutal.
say it's because it's like LeBron before he did whatever he did to get his hair to come back. And I don't mean to shit on LeBron.
You mean before he painted it on his head every day?
I don't think it's painted, man. I've seen close-ups.
It comes off in the middle of the game.
You come off in the middle of the game. I don't watch basketball, so I don't
this
have
is
a
horrible.
reference,
His hairline is literally running away from his mug right now.
Okay,
Like,
well, remember who the fucking barber is, though. It's Stan Lee with the fucked up
yes,
blade. So
you're
Yeah.
right.
well, of course it's a bad haircut. That's the only reason I wanted to
man.
bring it up. This is our Stan Lee cameo, our subtle Stan Lee cameo. That's what my heart
I love
says.
that.
Scar is played by Will Dusner. It is in the credits. I looked it up. Also, where I found out Kevin is not named, does not have a voice actor name, which made me sad. I was hoping it was Kevin Feige.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
Bummer.
Will Dusner is a very young-looking gentleman. He looks wicked old as Hulk, but he looks like he's about 14 at best in his
tracks.
pictures. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here with him. But to top it all off, Emil is going back to prison. Of course, he signs a legal document saying this is what happened. He's like, oh, if you sign this, you go to prison for another 10 years. And he goes, yeah, well, it is what it is, essentially. And then in the post-credit scene, he gets sprung from prison to go live in Kamertage. And what did he say? Oh, did you get wrapped up in another TV show? And he says, we are in a peak of television history or something like that.
Yeah, so it's like
Which
peak
is-
TV.
Which is a reference to maybe him watching The Sopranos. B,
Oh, definitely.
B, is Wong a Skrull?
Bum bum bum.
I
We've
thought
talked
this
about
whole
that on the
moment-
show previously. What
I know.
what happened in this episode to make you think that?
Why is Wong fucking late all the time? A, but B, I didn't think about the Sopranos thing. I was like, what show is he in? Like, I took it as a fourth wall break. Oh,
Yeah,
like,
sure.
oh, did you get wrapped up in another show? And I'm like, what other show could he be in? And then
I
someone
also
was
took
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, he's like,
So did I.
oh, is Wong a Skrull? I'm starting to think so. And I went, oh shit, that's what's next. That's the next show, Secret Invasion.
Okay.
Oh my god. And then I was like, wow. And until this moment, when you mentioned, like, I said it out loud, I was like, oh, they could have been talking about the fucking Sopranos. Like, totally forgot the whole Madison Wong thing. What is that real? Is that the real discussing film?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to see
Breaking
that.
news.
I didn't mean to break your train of thought here, but it looks like
Wow,
Harrison
he's
Ford
really
has
doing it.
reportedly been cast as Thunderbolt Ross for Captain America: New World Order.
Holy
You guys-
cow! Breaking news.
Pro or not? I'm fucking pro. That's incredible.
I am all for Harrison Ford being in
Wow.
all of the things.
That's huge.
And
Incredible.
The best part is he does not have to do a fucking ounce of running and falling, because that's why he's not doing Indiana Jones.
This is true.
Like,
Anyway.
Thunderbolt Ross may never be Red Hulk, but Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross in human form will never have to run. So it's win-win. And I don't.
We all win.
We all win. We really do. You telling me Han Solo's about to be a fucking bad guy? Come on, man. Come on. And now, as Emil says, I only do things for profit. Nothing bad, just for profit. Get me Emil Blonsky in the fucking Thunderbolts.
Yeah. Is that where he's going? So like he is going to
It seems
Comertage.
like
What is his plan, right? Like we don't know. I don't know.
Great
I
question.
kind of took the fourth wall break as like, is this a subtle hint that he is getting his own show? Like, is he filming or has he been wrapped up in like production of another show? You know what I mean? Obviously,
Yeah.
I do think The Sopranos is the right answer here. I do think he meant it as like, oh, you got sucked into another TV show that you're watching. But I don't know. I'm curious because he does say
I think they
we
did
are
that on
living
purpose.
in peak TV, and
God.
everybody wants him to be part of that peak TV. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, Thomas, you just said it earlier. We are living in a peak time for TV, and I think it was supposed to have a dual meaning where, yeah, he's been binging The Sopranos with Madison with 2 N's and 1 Y, but like we are also just living in that great of a time right now with television. So I think the dual meaning of that is actually pretty cool. I definitely took it as meaning both.
Yeah.
I just saw that She-Hulk is production on a season 2 is going forward from also discussing film. So shout out discussing film. I block every fake discussing film. It means that's why I was like, is that the real one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
there's
real
so
one.
many
So
fake
many-
ones. Oh my gosh.
I block them all the time. I'm like, what is it? Marvel source block?
no, this one looks
Marvel's
legit.
sources? Yeah, it's
This
legit. So
one
that's
looks
amazing.
like the real deal.
You know, you said, is he getting his own show? And I was like, I would love Emil and Wong buddy comedy kind of show going forward. Like, are you fucking serious? That would be so
That'd be
amazing.
sick.
I'm intrigued to click on that YouTube source of Han Solo, Harrison, Indiana Jones, Ford.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Notice how Han
It
Solo
is.
comes first. Yeah,
Well, this leaked a week or two ago, and
it was
I
he
mean,
denied it.
Yeah,
That was the leak.
Yeah.
right.
So
yeah,
that's
it was
why I'm intrigued.
that he's saying that he wasn't involved, and now he's saying he is. So
He was
New
probably
World
just
Order.
in talks to make his bag even bigger, right? He was like, look,
Yeah.
it's going to be 5 or 6 million because it's going to be 6
Just
million. And MCU
right,
was
yeah.
like, all right, we'll just pay you.
all right, you got it.
It was
JRB,
probably, do I have
don't-
to run?
Yeah, probably they had to lock it in the contract. I want to know
Oh, man.
what were your less than stellar highlights of
Oh,
like
good
moments of the
point.
show?
I
Because
forgot
I'm
about
genuinely curious because I have things I want to share, but I want to hear from you first.
Totally. So first, I want to lead off with my thoughts on the show as a whole because there were so many things about this show that I really enjoyed, and Thomas actually was one of the main guys that helped me enjoy it. It really, I think we've said this every week since he made this comparison, but like when you think of She-Hulk as like the Saturday morning cartoon of the MCU, like it works perfectly because it's not supposed to be that structured series where you're following week to week and you're super invested in the plot. They did still kind of work that in, but in the end, it really didn't matter. So what you're left with is just this really fun week to week adventure where you get to see the MCU from a ground level and see someone, you know, get back to the roots of like an MCU hero origin, and seeing it in like a law setting was really cool. So I really enjoyed that. But another thing that I liked a lot, and you had mentioned this earlier about Werewolf by Night, was the soundtrack and the score of it. The hero theme is so much more obscure than in years past, where it's not as triumphant and it's not as straightforward as it used to be. Now it's more, it's kind of just a little bit more obscure, I guess, where the tone of the music that plays in most of these like mid credits where we see the artwork, it's kind of unsettling a little bit, where you don't really know how to feel about it, and then it kind of levels out, and then you realize, oh, this is the She-Hulk theme, you know. And I think that's kind of how the show flowed as a whole. But the music helped out a lot with that, because these episodes are only 30 minutes long, and there's so much storytelling they had to do, so much ground they had to cover, that the music, in almost every episode, there were instances where it, you know, the music told the story. You know, it told exactly the story and the tone of what Jen was feeling in that moment, which I think was super efficient. But it was also super relatable, because my favorites playlist, my music is just as psychotic of a collection as Jen's is, where she's listening to anything from you know, Missy Elliott to Hanson to Dua Lipa. You know, it's all over the place.
Bop was a great callback. That was good stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was awesome. But like, so for me, I express and process a lot of my emotion through music. So having that in this and seeing a character actually do that and fall back on, you know, her musical taste to kind of help her process some of the stuff she's going through was really cool. So some of my favorite elements in this show, the comedy beats, the legal matters, the music, in the finale, that stuff wasn't really as present. And it was such a curveball that I know the intent was to throw people off and follow the theme of the subverting expectations, you know, of these dude bros that this show's been making fun of all throughout the series. But this finale made me feel like one of those dude bros, because like it left me wanting so much more, you know. Like I felt just dissatisfied as a whole, and I liked that they stepped out of the box and put She-Hulk in like a real world setting. I just wish they would have gone all the way with it, because the Kevin AI thing didn't really make a ton of sense to me, where having that conversation with a robot that's controlling everything didn't land the same way as what I expected to see, which was actually Kevin Feige and her sitting down and having a talk with the guy running things. Making it an AI made it feel like it was just another fantasy story, and it wasn't her breaking the fourth wall and getting into the real world. It just felt like another faction of the MCU to me. So I don't know, talking to the robot named Kevin, it was funny that there were so many nods to the real Kevin Feige, but I wish it was just actually him, because that would have made sense. So the AI part really didn't land for me. And if I'm missing something, I would love to hear what it is, because I want to like that part a lot. It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And then when we get back to the story, she complained about how the plot was so jumbled and messy and didn't make much sense for the story that she was trying to tell. But then after she said that, the story continued to not make sense. Like she ended up at a Fast and Furious style family barbecue with her family, with Daredevil, who was supposed to be more of like a fling type deal. And now they're implying that it's going to be more of a long-term thing. Maybe not a committed relationship, but there's definitely more of an established dynamic there now than there was with just the episode 8 that we saw. So that also threw me off a little bit, because she's taking him home to meet her family already. You know, it's just, it seems eager, you know, but it does kind of line up. But then you have Hulk walk in with his son, and it's like, you just told me you were going to save this for his movie. What are we doing here? You know, and then you introduce Scar, and as soon as we meet him, he's gone, and we don't talk about it any further. So it felt so back and forth to me, almost like a game of ping pong, where she's saying one thing and then another thing happens, and it's back and forth. So I felt like by the end of the episode, I had been thrown back and forth so many times that I was like, what am I supposed to be taking away from this? You know? And so I rewatched it right before hopping on to talk to you guys about it. And now with expecting what's going to happen, watching the episode, it goes a little easier for me because it's not such a roller coaster. But I'm still left at the end of the episode questioning, like, if you were so unhappy with how this final episode was going, the changes you made really didn't help it make any more sense for the story you're trying to tell. So that's a very long-winded explanation of why the finale didn't land for me. I still love the show. It's just this last episode, you introduced so many subplots that were promoted as like the main importance of the show. And then we get to the finale, and that's when Jen decides none of this matters, you know? I like the message that it tells, but at the same time, we just spent 2 months building up to this, and it just all got thrown away. So that's where it rubbed me the wrong way.
I think that's fair. I think it's very interesting because I think it's the ultimate juxtaposition of the MCU. I think literally everything that the MCU does right and does wrong is distilled in about 17 minutes or 16 minutes, essentially, when she breaks the wall. Because you bring up a very good point, right? The fact that Jen goes to Kevin and says, look, none of this makes any sense. It's jumbled. It doesn't apply. Hulk shows up literally out of nowhere. How does any of this work? And then she makes requests like, okay, Todd does not have Hulk. Hulk goes away. I'd like Daredevil back. All of these things that Kevin obliges to and says, okay, that makes sense. I think it's clever and smart from Marvel and from their actual writers' room to say, yeah, I mean, we have a problem where our climax is the payoff, and that cannot be the case every single time, because now we have a formula and now it is biting us in the ass and everybody knows it. So I think that's really clever. But like you mentioned, JRB, we go back to the storyline and Daredevil just shows up and Hulk and Scar just show up, and like there is no explanation for that, especially for Hulk and Scar. That is literally the pinnacle of the juxtaposition of MCU. They cannot help themselves from introducing fan moments and fan favorites. They can't stop. Even when they call it out directly in their show, they're like, you know what?
Same episode.
We should put a cameo in here. Exactly. They're like,
literally
we got to put a
5 minutes
cameo
earlier. She's saying, save that for the movie. And by the time the episode finishes, he's standing right there.
All right, you talking about being ping pong back and forth. Let me Tyreek Hill the fuck out of this for you by sneaking you around and sneaking in a really custom ping pong table to yank you back to the other side. That was confusing.
That was really confusing.
Welcome to the pod. So what it does is it takes all these really dumb higher stakes that they were building up to, fucking Hulk Hulk coming out of nowhere, all this other stuff, and it narrows it back down to the small scale that She-Hulk has been this whole time, right? Instead of Todd being a fucking Hulk, now he's just an idiot dude, bro, who's finally going to get arrested and get the true consequences of the actions he deserves. Hulk, fuck him. We have no reason that he should randomly come back from space like that in a fight, nonetheless, when he was called literally, like she sent him a text the same day that he didn't answer that text because it wasn't on, or like it wasn't delivered. Come on. Either he was already at that facility or he was outer space. There's no other way I can see him without having reception. And then Emil, instead of being Abomination, just shrinks back down. And the reason they do that is because they're going to cut to the daylight and the outside. So that's why he's already, I think that's just one of those, we have to save the budget kind of things that Kevin talked about. And he's Abomination here, but he's about to be Emil and locked up in prison.
Oh,
but
God. Real quick. Sorry. Really quick. Abomination is so much bigger than Hulk now. It's crazy.
Yes.
Like towers over him.
Humongous.
Yeah. Abomination keeps growing. Like that's one of the things they say is he's going to keep growing in the movie.
Wild.
Yeah, I know. That's a 2008 throwback that for some fucking reason that brain remembers, but I couldn't tell you what I had for lunch 3 weeks ago. But your biggest complaint is my biggest complaint, which is why do they say save it for the movie? Wrong. She-Hulk, Jen says save it for the movie, but it's Kevin who forces Hulk back into the plot at the end. Because when he shows up,
I was getting there.
Oh yeah, my guy. When he shows up, Jen literally is like, "What the fuck?" Like the look on her face is, "What's happening here?"
Like I thought we agreed not to do this type of look.
Exactly. Yep. And so it's like shoehorned in there, and it's one of those things. It's like can't save it. And the best part is Kevin even hints like, "So we can see you on the big screen." The big screen? That was a joke. Oh, like it's like, oh, got you. I'm just getting you on that fact that I got you, but you're really going to be in the movie. And I think that's a beautiful kind of thing, is like She-Hulk can do so much and can change so much, but at the end of the day, it'll always correct itself. Time will always correct itself. It was Kang, is what I'm saying. I'm sorry. It's not Kang, it's Kevin.
It is that room is eerily reminiscent of a room at the TVA when Loki kind of looks back at his life. I mean, the first time Jen goes in there, she sees everything that has been, and especially obviously in the MCU. I think it's clever. I think it's a really divisive storytelling for this show in particular, a show that is already divisive. So like, why not put all your chips on the table? But like people that are not like us, people that do not take as much time as we do talking about this stuff and thinking about it and being attached to it. I don't know if it'll play very well to more general, broad audiences. I think they will think like, oh, that's cool. Like she jumped out of the Disney Plus screen, but I don't think anybody is going to understand like the actual nature of like what this means. My first thought, and this goes all the way back to like what I was saying initially of like anything is possible in the MCU now. This to me was Kevin, literally the real Kevin Feige and the writers' room and everybody at Marvel confirming that they love projects like Eternals, like WandaVision, like She-Hulk. They love things that take big swings. And even if they miss, they still like to be subversive in that nature. And so for me, I was like, hell yeah, this is my Eternals confirmation. Like this means that they care about projects that are different. And I liked that personally. And that was like the thing that I pulled from that conversation. But I think this show is riddled with highlights and problems, and it's very middle of the road for me overall. I think it is definitely best enjoyed like as just here's the show, like enjoy it, don't look too much into it, and just like here is what it is.
Exactly.
And I think obviously done very purposefully, and when you experience it like that, I do think it is rewarding. But yeah, I mean I think overall it is enjoyable, but I don't know, I had fun with the finale.
Yeah, I gotta say that ever since I started since Loki, when I binged the whole thing in a day, from that point forward, I took Big Wolf. That was pain. I woke up at real quick side story. I woke up at 2 a.m. because I had to work at 4. I watched the Loki season finale, went to work, worked 8 or 9 hours, came home, sat down, started watching Loki episode 1. Watched all 5 episodes just to watch episode 6 again. By the end, I was like, oh, thank God it's just Kang being beautiful Kang and fucking with everybody, because I can sit through this, but my brain cannot absorb information anymore because there's so much going on that I learned, okay, I can't absorb information like this. Not every show's meant to be binged. Not every show's meant to be the same style. So from this point forward, why don't I go ahead and approach Marvel in general? Because this was right after Black Widow as well, where I was like, you know what? Let's approach every Marvel film as what it's meant to be and go from there. And the only one where I ran into real hard trouble was Multiverse of Madness, because it took me so long to realize it was a horror movie, which is why I didn't like it the first time and a half I watched it. Because I was just like, God, what do I? I'm like, what do I know?
Wow.
It's about the same place in the rankings, but I can enjoy it now because I'm like, oh, it's a horror movie. That's why they do that. That's why it's done this way. Okay, I feel better about like my distaste for the certain things they choose to do. It's because it's the genre I least like, but I can appreciate the craft that goes into it, and that's how I've been approaching Marvel ever since. And honestly, I think that is how it should always be approached. And if you look at Werewolf by Night and just being like, here's what it is, don't look too deep into it, is the same way that She-Hulk has been for the most part. I'm going to look deep into everything. Like I'm going to try and find these monsters on the wall in Werewolf by Night. But overall, I like to sit down and just enjoy it and then forget things that happen. So when I go back and rewatch it, I'm like, wow.
It's fair.
You know what's going to make I think there's no easy segue here. There's no easy segue.
It's coming.
We're going from something very awesome, very upbeat, very happy to one of the saddest episodes,
Coldest thing I've ever seen.
Oh my god, dude. It is I wanted to watch this episode again before tonight, and I couldn't squeeze it into my week. And I'm just like riding right now off of a high that I had on Sunday, a 5-day-old high that's been lifted up by Andor and She-Hulk and a Werewolf by Night rewatch. Listen, man, House of the Dragon hit a whole new level. I think it's the greatest episode of Game of Thrones of all time.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
I've only seen Game of Thrones up until the Red Wedding, and I have not seen anything post that. And that was like a long time ago. And so House of the Dragon is really like my only complete like Game of Thrones experience. I'm pretty obsessed, man. I gotta be honest with you. I'm very obsessed with like the sly looks here and there, the occasional political missteps. I'm just the whole thing. I love all of it so much. And I don't know if some of that comes because I binged it in like 3 days or what. But I love it.
I'm going to be honest. No, I think it's just the show, because after episode one, I was like, I forgot how much I love Game of Thrones. Like episode 1 alone was like, oh, that's why I watched that show. And that's why I will be willing to watch season 8, but I don't want to watch it until after truly enjoying the other 7 seasons, you know? And then like episode 3 happens and they go on that hunt, and I'm like, wow, like, yes, this right here, man. Let's do this. And then they have another great episode and another and a 10-year time jump. And then a couple months and then another 10-year time jump. And it's like, all right. So I want to know, you've binged 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite character through the first 4? And who have you hated the whole time? And then who do you hate now?
That's a tough, dude.
I'm down to liking 2 characters and not hating, like at a point where I've never hated them once. So
interesting. Okay. What? Okay. I better go first. So I think for the first 4 episodes, I really, I don't think I hated, but I really enjoyed Otto Hightower's presence as the Hand, because I thought he was really devious, and I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. Things are going to get really toasty. I also liked young Rhaenyra. I thought she was great as like a young Rhaenyra. When we get the time jump, and like now that we're at episode 8, I think the character I hate the most is Alicent. I think she is the most stone cold, soul crushing person that could exist in this situation. And the way episode 8 leaves us is literally just adding gasoline to her fire of, you know, her now believing that the tale of Aegon is actually meant for her son to take the throne instead of Rhaenyra to take the throne. And I think the person that I stand by the most is still Rhaenyra. I think she is really good devious intentions, and I think the things she does seem far more justified than the way Alicent does things. But I think that Daemon to me has kind of always been an enigma. Every single episode I'm like, do I like Daemon? I don't know. And then we get episode 7 and then they bang on the beach and I'm like, I don't think so. Don't think I like Daemon. And then we get episode 8 and Daemon is, you know, taking pressure off of Rhaenyra and like supporting her and doing things to keep the Targaryen bloodline clean. And I'm like, okay, Daemon's kind of the guy. He's kind of a good dude in this situation. So I think it goes back and forth. But yeah, I'm really curious. I'm really curious who the 2 people you like are.
So the only 2 characters I have not hated one time are Laena and Laenor Valerian. And you notice how they're not on the show right now.
Can't do anything wrong. That is fair.
They're the only 2. Like, I'm like, little Laena is being married off to her however old he was at that point. And I was like, come on, dude. Like, no.
Yeah.
But then she's like, I was like, you can tell she's not about it, but she's going to do what she needs to do for the kingdom. And then we see her again as a teenager and she's like, okay, now I'm going to hit on you, Mr. Daemon Targaryen. And it's like, that's a bad choice, but whatever. You do you, babe. Then she decides to just off herself, go out a warrior's death, and have Vhagar burn her alive with her babe because she doesn't want to become Emma. And is it crazy? Do you think Daemon would have tried to cut the babe out of her belly? Like,
see that
like
that
Viserys
is
did?
that is what is so intriguing, right? The sins of the father are the sins of the son, because Viserys made that decision. It would lead you to believe that Daemon would indeed make the same decision because of the circumstances he was put in. But when he finds her, like, burned to a crisp by Vhagar, and they do have a funeral for her, and he does, stand on that walkway, that sky bridge with his girls, and have that moment of solace with them. I think his heart is hurting. I do. And I obviously he does see it as an opportunity to then get with Rhaenyra and further extend the Targaryen bloodline. And like, he jumps on that very quickly, obviously, as we know he does. But like, I do think that he probably wouldn't have done it. I don't think that he would have had the balls really to make that choice.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's one of the most brilliant things about the show is like, we don't get to find out. It was not his decision to make, right? And I think that is really smart.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And you could tell when he was given it, he literally smirks like, I'm in the same exact place my idiot brother was. And I literally made fun of him for making this decision.
Yeah, sorry, his brother.
And it's like, okay, all right. And I think he needed her. She did not need him. He's always needed a lady there. And he liked having her around because, I mean, I think he liked being pushed by her. Like, she would fight back and be like, no, you're better than this. And that's what he kind of likes and doesn't like. It's like a weird thing for him.
Yeah, I do think for Daemon, I do think it's a power complex. Like, he has had whores with him the entire show, right? Like, he cannot keep himself from somebody to control or to see over. And he is a lurker, right? So like, the more power that he can have in his hand, the better situated he is for the moves that he wants to make. And so by having a wife and a family to oversee and to feel like he has a continuous source of power, I think is a big move for him. And that's why he jumps on Rhaenyra so quickly. It's not, I don't think it's necessarily 100% because he buys into their plan and whatever they, they make on that bridge, that pact that they make. I do think part of it has to do with his underlying need to be powerful in a relationship. And whatever that means, he will do those things.
Yes. And what I love is that he is like the most non-submissive. I will fight. I will claw. I will do whatever I got to do because I'm not bowing to any one person. And then this episode happens and he's literally like, I'm not bowing to anyone except for you, my queen. And I love how the crux of this episode, we'll bring JRB in now that he's back from his pee break. We'll rope him in. We'll lasso him up. Because I sent a GIF, and now it's time for JRB to learn what the GIF means. The crux of the beginning of this episode is that Vaemond Valerian is challenging the
throne. He's essentially
the throne.
The throne of
Driftwood.
Of Driftwood, exactly.
So he's challenging that it should go to him and not Luke Valerian, because Luke is not of his blood, and so it should stay in the bloodline and stay there.
Technically not of his blood, but as far as the kingdom is concerned,
it is of his
part of his blood.
Exactly.
As far as Viserys is concerned, which is obviously the crux of the entire show.
Yeah.
But yes.
So it's very fun, and that brings all the characters back together again, as well as, Viserys is very much not doing well, and they all kind of know that. So Vaemond challenges all of this in court even, and at the last minute, Viserys comes in with his golden faceplate and his cane, and he hobbles his way to the throne, and it is the most painful thing. By this point, we've not seen what his face looks like, which is the most important thing to note. We can tell that something's fucked up underneath because he's bandaged and he's frail and he whines and he cries, and if he sits, he's He's being given milk of the poppy, which is essentially just, I'm assuming, cocaine alcohol.
Yeah, I would assume.
As how I got to describe it.
it.
Very powerful to take the pain away and makes him confused. He refuses it, which is like, oh, he's going to do the thing. He was asked by Rhaenyra to go and defend her bloodline, her family, because it'll all lead to her, like them challenging her throne, her inheritance of the throne. He comes in, he makes the moves, and he challenges Vaemond in a way where he's like, what do you mean they're not of your blood? And he's like, he gets all mad and he goes, I will not allow you to take away what is mine in my family's, because her children are. Daemon leans over and says, say it. They are bastards. And what I love is old hobbled, fucked up Viserys stands up as best he can, whips out his knife and says, I'll have your tongue for that. And you, right before that, you see Daemon look over at Rhaenyra. She side-eyes him. A little subtle. The very next thing you see is Vaemond yelling, and a sword goes through his fucking head. It falls to the ground. Daemon stands up and goes, he can keep his tongue. He kills that motherfucker dead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why he can keep his tongue.
Yeah, because
Got
his
it.
tongue's still attached. But
It's like, why did he spare his tongue?
there up is the yeah, exactly, dude.
I think that moment is so complex, and it is so much more than we see, because it is Rhaenyra and Daemon in particular finally understanding and utilizing the fact that Viserys is blind to what the entire kingdom sees. He is blind to the disrupted bloodline that essentially, did not stem from Rhaenyra because they had this agreement to have fun in their own ways. And I think that is so powerful. That is really like the first moment that we see them acting as like such a strong bond together. They give that nod and that like approval, and they say like, well, okay, if my brother and your dad are if he's not going to take this seriously, I'll just chop his head off and he's not going to do anything, because Viserys will do anything to defend Rhaenyra and do anything now to defend Daemon, which, it appears is the case. So I think they finally utilize that in like the most grandiose way possible. And it is so crazy. I was shocked. I was literally on my couch, like moving my head in circles, just like completely in awe of what happened.
This was a very late Sunday night where I went, oh, let's fucking go. I didn't yell that much in the Cowboys game, dude. Because it like took me by surprise. It was amazing. I was just like, oh man, he did it. Like, let's go. I'm Team Daemon again. I'm back on the Daemon train. I also love one little note of Daemon. Alicent walks in and he instantly is just like, oh, fuck. Like, instantaneous, shit's gonna be annoying. And another fun moment before we move to the dinner, JRB, is there's some brotherly hate going on here between Daemon towards Viserys, but Viserys has always loved his brother Daemon. As he's hobbling up the steps to get to the Iron Throne with his cane and his broken body, his crown falls off. He denied help from family members, from the ladies, from the King's Guard. The crown falls down. We see a hand pick it up. And he's like, I told you I'm fine. Looks up and sees his brother Daemon. And Daemon, first time ever, helps him up and says, come on. And just guides him up there. When he's sitting there, he just kindly places the crown on his head with a nod and goes back to his place. Like, I cried at this moment because I did not expect Daemon to do that ever. And it's so good, man. Fuck.
I think this is really powerful for two reasons. Obviously, the first reason is like what we see, right? Like Daemon placing the crown on his brother's head and saying, this kingdom is yours. You are still the king. Regardless of how you feel or whatever the case is, you will still be the king. But I think it's powerful for another, subliminal reason, because you can view it as like Daemon is placing the crown on the Targaryen bloodline. He is confirming in that moment that Rhaenyra will sit the throne, and he has accepted that, and he is okay and will now support that fact as long as Targaryen blood sits on that throne. Because in the preceding, or in the preceding moments when the Valerians kind of attack and try to strengthen their position, that this is like a preface to that of basically to Daemon chopping off his head, of saying like, no, that throne belongs to us and belongs to our family. And whatever you do, even if you sit the throne in Driftwood, it still makes you more powerful. And we will not have that. We will have Targaryen blood on the throne. So I think it's really a pivotal moment, even outside of what it means for their relationship. And like, it is incredibly sad. And moving into the dinner, like, it is incredibly sad to see this family finally understand, like, we fucked up. Like, we really fucked up over the last 20 years of his life. And now we don't have a father. And now we don't have a brother. And now we don't have a king because he's going down. And this is when shit is going to hit the fan. And we should have been preparing. And we should have loved him. And we should have had conversations. And that is what makes the dinner scene so good, too, because it's an ebb and a flow. We get that. But then we get shot right back into reality.
Yeah. The dinner scene, you know, the Last Supper of King Viserys I.
Yeah.
We see his face. And it's very the imagery of him taking off the mask of the right side of his face, and the right side of his body is Alicent and the Hightowers bloodline.
Yep.
And to the left is the Targaryen Rhaenyra bloodline. You've got the leeches and the ones who ran away to avoid the leeches. And it's beautifully in fact, you've got the leeches sucking him dry, and you've got the arm of the king cut off on the left side.
It's literally what Daemon says, right? No matter how full the leeches are, they will always come back for a second meal. And that is always the case, and will never not be the case when it comes to the crown.
Yes, exactly. And so in this, he finally stands the fuck up and says, this is bullshit. We all need to be better. This is family. We need to act like it. So we're going to sit here and we're going to drink and we're going to get past our problems. And they start toasting each other. And it is actually rather heartwarming while the king is there. Then you find out there's a mention of marriage, because there's a lot of marriages going on. A lot of brother-sister marriages because, well, it's Game of Thrones. Helena, first off, she's a soothsayer and a seer, and in this episode, she says, beware the beast beneath the boards. And the last time she said some sideways shit, Aemon lost an eye and gained a dragon. So it's a fair exchange. She mentions that, oh, don't worry, marriage isn't so bad. He usually just ignores you. He'll sometimes deal with you, and most of the time, he just ignores you and goes to other people. And it's like, oh, and all the while, little rapist fucking Aegon, the whatever he is, Alicent's little fuck ass son, like is making fun. Oh, do you even know how to be with a woman? Do you even know how to be with a woman, Jace? And then upon the moment of Helena saying that, he gets up and he starts dancing with her because he's a fucking gentleman. He's a strong gentleman, which brings us to Aemon. Is it weird that Aemon might become my favorite character by the end of this season? Like right now, he's trending high. I hated him last episode when he was a little shitbag, but now I'm like, you know, that guy grew. He's kind of growing on me. He's admiring the fuck out of Daemon Targaryen when he slices the dude's head off, but he makes a toast to his nephews, the nephews who cut his fucking eye out. And he says they're wise, brave, strong. And
Alicent tells him to stop. Alicent says, watch what you're about to say. And he still continues to do it because he cannot help himself. It's so good.
Exactly. And that's the one moment where Alicent's like, we can salvage this.
Yeah. And it's because Rhaenyra causes her to feel that way, which is even more politicking and even a smarter play from Rhaenyra to weaken her in a moment in which Viserys is already weak, and she knows that she can exploit this family time and really put Alicent on her back heels and go for some power and make a move. And Alicent right then and there, like, indicts herself and her family. because she is feeling sentimental about what was and the friendship that could have been.
Yeah, and I think what's also very important to mention is Rhaenys, I believe is her name, Valerian, Corlys's wife, is initially like, I'm not supporting you. I'm going to support myself. And
Right.
Vaemon knows that. And when it comes time to the king, after a proposition was given, and, you know, the direct question is asked, what would your husband Corlys want? You are to act in his stead. And she stands by her husband and says he would want it to be passed down to our grandson, Lucerys Valerian. And that is, she then goes to say, of course, that Luke and Jace are betrothed to Laena's kids, who are basically their stepsisters, to be wed and continue on as serving and inheriting Driftwood, which is exactly what she wanted. She gets what she wants, and Corlys gets what he wants, and that's perfect. It continues through Laena's children. Laena, our fucking favorite character of the show, who's gone, R.I.P., gone too soon, and Luke, which is what Corlys wanted. And I think that plays in Alicent's mind, like, wow, I am good. I do want to do what my husband does, because he is a good man. He's not a great king, but he is a good man, and he knows what he wants to do. And he's always said to her, you've been very good to me. You've been a very good wife and very good in my stead. And I think that weighs upon her there too. It's so complex. That one moment, we have one moment of fucking bliss, and that little shit Aemon starts to tear it all back down.
Comes down.
I think we got to cut to the end, man. I think we got to cut to it when Alicent comes in and checks on him. And earlier in the show, JRB, Viserys thinks he's talking to Alicent, but he's actually talking to Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra corrects him on, like, no, I'm Rhaenyra. I'm Rhaenyra.
What's the significance there? Is he looking straight at her thinking he's talking to someone else, or is this like,
yeah,
oh, so is he struggling with like memory loss or something, or
he's about to die, like literally on his deathbed, as close to you can be.
And I think it's written really smartly too, because we get that initial nod of like him mistaking Rhaenyra for Alicent, and then obviously it comes back the other way at the very end where he thinks it's Rhaenyra, but it is actually Alicent, so he cannot distinguish. But we also get that in the middle of the episode when he calls Alicent Emma.
Yes.
And that is just another nod to him, like, totally
too many bitches
living in another. God damn it!
God damn, dude.
He's totally.
Sorry,
King Viserys, too many bitches. That's like on his gravestone. No, it just it just goes to show that Viserys like is living in a better time. He has already mentally moved on, and he is talking to people he wants to talk to, right? He does miss Emma. He regrets the decisions that he made with Emma, even though he went on to secure a bloodline and the throne and everything that happened after that. He is saddened by that. And so on his deathbed, he speaks the truth. And from what I know from like the Easter egg videos I've watched and stuff, like the Targaryens are very interested in dreams. And this is why this kind of like the Prince Aegon kind of like dream is so important to Viserys, and why he shares it. And I think it's just really, again, like House of the Dragon, just really smart writing all the way through, all the time.
Absolutely. And so Rhaenyra had asked him, you know, do you believe in the Song of Fire and Ice? And the Song of Fire and Ice is the book, the story that Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 8 plays out. That is what it is. It is the Song of Fire and Ice. And they mention it in the beginning. And the prince who was born of fire and of ice, I was about to say some shit, and I'm not going to, because that would have totally spoiled some shit for you, Ethan Simmie. It is a very important. It is it's a character that everybody knows and loves. Maybe they die, maybe they don't. I don't know. I'm gonna let you decide and find out on your own.
Okay, that's fair.
But it is that character. So it's 200 years away, this Song of Fire and Ice, but they think it's now. They're always worried about it from this point forward. And Rhaenyra asks, do you believe in it? Because if you do, I need you to support me so we can continue and carry on. So at the very end, he's like, you asked if I believed. And I'm like, oh, believe, like, oh, come on. Don't say, no, you don't believe that the Valerians aren't your actual aren't
Right.
Valerian blood. Like, that would be terrible right now. What could be worse than that? Well, he starts talking about the Song of Fire, and Aegon's dream. And Alicent peeks up. What about Aegon? What's of him? What has he done? And he goes on to describe, it's you. You're the one. He's basically telling Rhaenyra, you are the prince in the Song of Fire and Ice.
Yeah.
You're the one to protect this realm. It is all because of you. And I will say, after looking around at some family trees, the prince comes from her bloodline.
Ah,
This
interesting.
is interesting. Okay, so like, since this is a prequel, the Song of Fire and Ice, is that like a prophecy at this point then? Like, and it's
Yes.
going to play out in
Right.
Game of Thrones?
Correct.
Interesting.
And if I'm not sure, I need to go back and rewatch all of Game of Thrones, but I don't think they ever talked about the Song of Fire and Ice and mentioned it by play until a certain point when they reveal that character, who it is. And it's mentioned very quietly right then and there. It's like the Song of Fire and Ice. It's you, born of fire and ice. And it's like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. That doesn't make sense. Well, the Song of Fire and Ice was apparently a prophecy dreamt by Aegon the Conqueror. And, like I said, Helena is a soothsayer. She has visions and dreams, and she can call out the future. So it is basically when the winds of winter come through. Oh my God, I can't say a fucking thing. Wait, how much of the pop culture stuff do you know of the White King?
Yeah. I'll give you
What is
full
his name?
game, Thomas. You can say anything you want because I'm never gonna watch Game of Thrones. I hate to break it to you.
There are fucking zombies in Game of Thrones. They're called White Walkers.
This I
and
know. Yeah.
The guy in charge leads them all, and the dream is that there's only one person born of fire and ice that can come through and kill the White King. I can't remember his fucking name.
Mm-hmm.
But can come through and take him out and end winter and kill them all. And that's what they're talking about here, is that they are predicting the end of Game of Thrones to an extent.
Gotcha.
I could question whether or not they're actually still right on the entity that kills it, man, woman, child. Maybe it's a wolf, is still born of fire and of ice, just not the way they think. But we'll never know. Did you watch the preview for next week?
Yeah, I did, but I can't remember it, so
Okay.
I don't know what happens.
It starts with Alicent saying, he told me that Aegon needs to be king in his last moment.
I did not watch the preview for next week.
Yeah.
Oh no! Oh no!
I'm like, okay, well, what does this mean? I thought she was gonna be like, okay, like, it's me. I need to be on the throne. No, she interprets it as stupid fuck ass prince rapist Aegon needs to be on the throne, and that's the first line said in the trailer for this coming week.
Isn't Aegon?
He told me
Aegon the little shit that masturbates out his window and he gets stopped?
Yes. Yeah.
He's Homelander.
Kid.
He's Homelanding.
He's Homelander in a different generation.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
It absolutely is. It is that little shit.
But hey, if it is him, that moment is powerful now, right? Because A, it's disgusting. B, he is essentially acting out a form of power over the city. If if he really is, and he is a prince, so I understand that. But like, interesting, fucked up scene, but interesting.
Very fucked up. Are we still talking about? Are we talking about Aegon or Homelander? Because yes, to both.
Both.
Huge parallel there. Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. Do you know what this show is based on, Ethan?
Do I know what this show is based on?
Yeah. Like.
No. I mean, it's from one of the books, right?
It is a book called Fire and Blood, and it is about the Dance of the Dragons, which is a war of dragons. And you know how in the beginning of Game of Thrones, how there are no dragons?
Yeah.
I got a bad feeling.
Oh no, Dragon's End.
I got a bad feeling about
Well,
this.
you know what? Joke's on everybody because the power of dragons are just illusions. should have never been harnessed by man anyway. So
Absolutely, I concur. That's why we should have been. Maybe we're Targaryens. We're both blondish.
Yeah, this is true. Jeremy, why don't you watch this show? I'm saying I don't know. Do you just not have time, or do you just not care?
He's a loser.
No, yeah, it's because I'm a loser. No, I never. It's not really up my alley. Like, it's not the style
That's
of the
fair.
show was never something that really piqued my interest. And then when it got
Mhm.
super popular and everyone started talking about it, I'm sure people have learned by now from this show that I'm definitely more of a contrarian. And when a lot of people buy into something and really like it, for whatever reason, it makes me want to check it out less. So, like,
God damn it!
when it came to Game of Thrones, I know, right? It's one of my worst traits. But like, it takes a lot of convincing to get me on board with like the really mainstream stuff. And when it came to Game of Thrones, literally, you could not get more mainstream than that once you got to the final couple seasons there. So, I didn't want to have to do the work of catching up to join the hype, because at that point it was like season 6. And I knew I already don't like binging stuff. That's another thing you guys know about me. So if I'm going to enjoy a show, I really like to take the time to enjoy it. And there's just too much for me to try to get through. So,
Dude, I've been saying this. You don't need Game of Thrones. Just give episode 1 a taste.
You do not need Game of Thrones for this show.
Not at all. This is basically like, if you want me to describe it to you as a Star Wars fan, when I tell people, when they say, what should I watch first in Star Wars? Start with the prequels. I assure you, if you can get through the prequels, you will love everything that comes after, even the sequel trilogy, because it's a much better made film. Even though the storylines might suck in the sequels, the filmmaking is better. Nothing against the prequels filmmaking. As great as it is, the writing of it is where it lacks the most. But the visuals, the spectacle of the prequels are amazing. And you technically don't need to know anything about what happens in 4, 5, and 6 to enjoy 1, 2, and 3. And I've shown people who've never seen Star Wars 1, 2, and 3. So when Anakin turns into Vader, they go, what the fuck? He's Darth Vader? And I'm like, I got you. Right? I got you. I know, right? I blew my mind too when I was 7. But in this case, there are the subtlest of nods to Game of Thrones right now have been mentioning the Song of Fire and Ice.
Yeah, mentioning the Lannisters.
Mentioning certain houses and character names, like the Starks get mentioned, the Lannisters get mentioned.
Baratheons get mentioned, I believe.
Baratheons and the Martells get mentioned as well. And Tyrell also, as what I meant, Mother Tyrell, Marjorie Tyrell, they get mentioned over in Dorne. But then it might be the 3 dragon eggs in this last episode that were harvested that might be the only other tie to Game of Thrones. I think those are the eggs that Daenerys hatches in Game of Thrones, because they mention how they've had them for almost 200 years.
I was against starting House of the Dragon, but people convinced me to watch it. So there you go, JRB. That's my testimonial.
Yeah. That's it. I just told you every single little tie into Game of Thrones, and they're so subtle that you literally have to watch all of Game of Thrones to get why they're references to Game of Thrones, but you don't need them. They're so, it's like me mentioning that I have a new job this week, which I haven't, but it's mentioned now inside of this 2-hour spectacle of a podcast. That's how much those references to Game of Thrones mean.
Nice. I like how you slipped that in there. Congrats on the new job, buddy.
Don't even care. Focus on what I said, not the other thing. I don't care. Watch House of the Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Can
okay.
I pay you
it.
to watch episode 1 of House of the Dragon? What is your price?
I will be awaiting your tweet reaction tonight, JRB. I'm turning on notifications. I'm waiting for you to tweet.
Yeah, I don't know. We got Bears versus Commanders tonight. That's a pretty compelling matchup.
Right,
NFL fans will know I'm being sarcastic there, but
yeah, I didn't even have a joke. I forgot that's the game.
I just assumed that was a big deal. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's a horrible. No,
he's a Bears. He lives in Chicago and he doesn't even want to watch this.
Yeah,
but he's also a Packers
fan.
So why would he?
The Bears, yeah, no, what a travesty. No, they haven't been good in like 40 years, but yeah, no, I don't know. I got to say, you guys make a real compelling argument. It does sound like it's a super enjoyable lore to follow, and that it gets really deep. And
Fuck the
Covers
Lord.
a lot of
Just
ground,
enjoy the
but-
filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
good.
that's the other thing is that it's a spectacle, you know, and if nothing else, that you can just enjoy the really the grandeur of it all. But yeah, I don't know.
God damn it! I thought
You guys
had
are
it.
you're getting. I'm close.
We're trying. We're trying.
Damn
I
it!
don't know.
I thought
don't
the
know.
Simmie Signal would be it, man. I
This-
thought it was this week.
I gotta say, Ethan probably
trying.
makes the most compelling argument because
Trying.
Ethan really is the
Hey.
guy that will just throw himself into something, and he's like, if I enjoy this, great. If I don't, at least I know. And it seems like this has hit you in a really good spot so far.
Yeah, look, I don't have the time to be watching this show, and I make the time to watch this show because,
Okay.
and I watched 3 a night, essentially 3 a night for 3 days because I was like so
Wow.
enthralled with like what was going to happen and how it was going to play out. Anyway,
How many days do I have until the finale?
You have
got-
14 days. You got 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
You have
Oh.
2 episodes left. Yeah.
There's I thought next week was it.
No,
okay,
no.
so we have 2
No.
weeks.
You
Okay.
got time, baby.
This week is episode 9, and next week is the finale.
Penultimate episode. Very curious what'll happen on Sunday.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
I'm mostly interested, and this will be like my final question for you, Thomas, is what is gonna go down with Laris? Like what is his play in all of this? Right? Like
Laris.
the Cane,
That motherfucker Laris.
the Cane Man. What is he?
Yes.
You're right, JRB. That
You are
motherfucker
fucking
Laris.
right.
Like, what's
Who
his
is this
game plan?
guy?
I'm
What's his
very
deal?
curious.
Have we talked about him before?
It feels like he is a long con. It feels like he is someone that is
Yes.
going to be around for a few seasons. That will definitely be playing the throne and the crown. But I'm very curious
He's-
because he is like strangely devoted to Alicent.
Well, he is the next Otto Hightower, if you will.
Ah,
Like
okay.
the manipulator. He's
the
going
inside.
in. Remember JRB when I told you about the guy who killed his own brother and his father?
Yeah. Oh.
It's that piece of shit.
This piece of shit.
And then he's
okay.
like he's manipulated people here and there, but then he utilizes that to manipulate Alicent, and then says, "I know that when I need a favor, I can come to you and ask." And there was a point where they have a conversation. She says something, and then she goes, "But don't take that to mean I want you to kill them." And it's like, oh yeah, she remembers. The North remembers. Is that from Game of Thrones? I don't know. That Bridge Fram remembers. That's from Family Guy. So, but what do I think is going to happen with Laris? Honestly, I hope the motherfucker gets killed, but he's probably around for a very long time. I think.
he'll be around.
Oh, all right. Yeah, he's going to be the war gamer. It'll be him plotting the battles, the big moves. He's the Tywin Lannister. He's the Tywin Lannister of House Green, if you will, at this point. He's about to look deep into the future and carry it on. And likely, if Aegon gets promoted to king, he's probably going to want to be hand of the king because he can unbiasedly advise the king now that he's not his grandfather. You know, if Otto Hightower does it, he's biased. He's the grandfather. So
Right.
I think that's where it all kind of falls. Yeah. So
A lot of politics.
burn them all at the stake. Ethan, did you notice really quick? Final question for you, and it's not any grandiose question. It's more of a did you recognize? Because I didn't until I saw it on Twitter. Viserys has the gold face mask over his face as he died, like as leading to his death. And Viserys III, Daenerys's older brother, is melted by a pot of gold in season 1. Yeah.
Intriguing. I did not remember that because it's been so long, but that is fascinating. That is a great tie-in. I love that.
Saw somebody post that on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh shit! I forgot that guy even existed."
Wow. Nice. Dang.
So
that's
that
good.
was a
That's
fun
good
one.
writing.
Yeah, that's
like
such beautiful writing. And you know, a name fit for a king. Viserys II is recently born, I think.
Yep, on the way.
On the way. And Viserys III is like 200 years away, but we'll get there.
We'll get there.
Ethan Simmie, my guy.
Guys, this has been great.
Yeah, where can everyone find you on social media? I forgot my question. I was like, do I go House of the Dragon because I thought of a new one, or
Man, you can follow me on Twitter at Ethan Simmie. Follow me on TikTok at Ethan_Simmie. I'm putting out movie reviews and all kinds of stuff every day on TikTok. And you can follow my podcast at 24 Minutes of A24 on Twitter as well, and available everywhere podcasts are available. We try to talk about A24 movies in 24 minutes or less. We have never done it in the year plus that we've been doing the show, but maybe one day. So yeah, it's a good time. It's come seek us out. Come check out our show.
Oh, quick question on that front. There is an A24 movie that's going to be coming out on Apple TV Plus with Jennifer Lawrence and is it Brian Tyree Henry, I think?
Oh yeah.
What do you think of that one? I had no idea that was going to be by A24, but it looks super emotional.
I believe that is that Causeway. I believe.
Causeway. That's right.
It looks good. It looks really good, especially from an A24 production standpoint. I think A24 excels when they latch themselves onto movies that are very deep and emotional and powerful in terms of relationships. So yeah, I'm excited. I've heard good things at festivals, not phenomenal things, but I've heard it's quite solid. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere that a lot of people think it might be Jennifer Lawrence's best work yet. I was surprised to see that it's going to be released like a hybrid release. It's going to be on Apple TV Plus the same day it drops in theaters. I didn't know that. I don't know why they're doing that, but it is pretty cool to see. But yeah, A24, they just keep pushing out really good movies, and so I'm definitely going to be continuing to follow your page there. But Ethan, do you have anything else to promote this week? Do you have any recommendations for us and for the audience?
Oh, tough, man, tough. I obviously thank you guys for having me on the pod. This is a pleasure every single time. I love talking to you guys. I think my one recommendation I will go with some recency bias here. It is spooky season, so if you're looking for an underrated, really weird, out of left field spooky movie, go check out Tusk. That is an A24 film. I am thoroughly disturbed, and I watched it last night, and I'm messed up. It's directed and written by Kevin Smith. So if you need a reason, Kevin Smith heads, get out there and check it out. And it's got Justin Long, who is king of horror right now, back for Barbarian. I am thoroughly disturbed. Go check out Tusk if you want to be really disturbed and fucked up.
Okay. Do you like horror?
Looking it up right now.
No, I hate horror. It's not my jam.
Okay. And you watched Tusk. That's why I haven't watched Tusk.
I watched it for the pod, bro. It's got a review
on
the podcast is coming out tomorrow, Friday. Yeah.
Oh, Justin Long is in this. I did not know that.
David Nestor just said Tusk is the weird and hard to watch.
It is a hard
and
watch.
That's why I've heard that, and I don't. That's
David
why I've not watched it. I'm a big Kevin Smith guy. I've seen a lot of his stuff, except for that like 3 horror realms he did of like Tusk, Yoga Hosers, and he did something else that I'm like, I haven't watched that because I just don't know if I'm emotionally okay to do this.
I mean, I recommend, but go in with a pretty apprehensive view of like, maybe don't eat when you're watching it. Like maybe don't watch it in the dark, like that kind of thing. I did not know what I was getting into, and I watched the trailer, and the trailer shows a little bit, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then like I watched the movie, and I was like, this is either the smartest, most fucked up shit I've ever seen, or literally the dumbest movie in the universe. And I still don't know. I can't decide.
Okay, it sounds like it's worth a watch.
Tune in to 24 Minutes of A24 to check out my full review.
Awesome. You got to tweet that to Kevin Smith, man. Like that.
Dude, listen. I
saw your tweet this morning, and I
tweeted a version of that, and then Beth Ann, who Thomas, Beth Ann of the She Will Rock You pod, go check out that pod. Great show. I was on that a few weeks ago. She left a comment and was like, Tusk is a wild watch or something like that. And Kevin Smith liked her tweet, but did not like my tweet. And so I really don't know what the heck that means. Beth Ann DM'd me and was like, dude, this is crazy. And I was like, oh my God, maybe he likes my tweet. And I was like, Beth Ann, he only liked yours. He didn't like mine. Probably because I was like, Kevin Smith, you should come on the pod. And we talked about it.
God.
That's fair. That's
fair. Gotta love being overshadowed by a Twitter reply. That is great.
Brutal.
We've all been there. Man,
I
feel your pain. We've all been
good
there.
Times. Yeah, check out Tusk.
Check out Tusk, I guess.
I don't know if I will. I don't think I'm.
Tell him Ethan Simmie sent you.
Oh,
maybe he'll like that tweet too.
Tag me when you tweet about it, because I'm curious what you think, listeners.
Awesome.
You know what? I
Cool.
might brave it just for you. JRB, what about you? What recommendations for the audience do you have?
This week I'm gonna recommend my current favorite show. It's not running, but I'm catching up on it. I mentioned it earlier. Superman and Lois. I'm watching it on HBO Max right now. God damn, that show's good. I forgot how good the CW shows are. And Superman and Lois. So many of like the actual plot lines really hit close to home for me for like the family aspect of the show. But it's so cool to see Superman being a Superman story being told like long form, because you get the family aspect, but you also get a Superman adventure literally every episode. So, in my opinion, it has the best live action origin story for Superman hidden in the first season too. So if you haven't checked out that show yet, catch up on it with me so we can watch the third season together when it drops sometime probably next year. Thomas, what about you? What do you got for the audience this week?
I have a book. I'm not finished with this book, but it's the only other media situation that I have, because otherwise I'd be telling everyone to do yoga. And I know none of our fucking listeners are doing yoga because no one tweets at me how much they thank me for my recommendation of doing yoga, hoser. But
David Nestor, you better be in the downward dog right now while you're listening to us talk about this.
Yeah, you better be doing some yoga, guy.
You better be fucking stretching those fucking jaw muscles to get ready to talk on a pod, baby. You thought I was going somewhere else? You X-rated son of a bitch.
You had me in the first half. You had me in the first half, Thomas.
Phil.
It's going to be Star Wars The High Republic. They have started phase 2, and I'm over halfway through The Path of Deceit. And I don't like to recommend a book until it makes me cry. And at the halfway point, they put some characters that I'm not sure how I feel about yet into dire circumstances, and I found out I love them. So I highly recommend this book. It is setting up so much. All right, real fast. It's a prequel to phase 1 of The High Republic. So it's 150 years ahead of The High Republic. Son of a bitch, guys. I'm literally living in 150 years prior to every other major
Your
thing
entire
going on in
consciousness
life.
is like way a long time ago.
I am Kang the Conqueror in this reality. So highly recommend The Path of Deceit. It sets up a bunch of shit, and I think they just referenced one of the things mentioned in this book in Andor episode 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Whoa.
And yeah, and it's very subtle, and the only reason I picked up on it is because I started the book the same damn day that episode came out, and they mentioned something about a hand and the path, and we'll see what happens, man. It doesn't matter because that character's a piece of shit in the show anyway, so fuck him. But I highly recommend Path of Deceit. It is a young adult novel, so it's focused around 17, 18-year-old teenagers as they go into this greater world, and there's a big mystery setting up behind it, and it's slowly unraveling this mystery of the deceit part of this path, and I'm very excited to see how it lands and where it goes. One of the characters is an ancestor to the villain Marchion Ro that is in all of the phase one of the High Republic. Tears down the Jedi at the height of their power, kind of thing. Which is important to note. That's not during the Clone Wars when Palpatine does it. So remember, it all started here. David Nestor, really fast, says, currently at the bus stop, downward dogging, JR. Trust me. So sure, he's getting some looks right now.
Well done.
Well done. I appreciate you, young sir, for going out there and stretching your mind as well as your hammies.
Love to see it.
Great day. Ethan Simmie, thank you so much for joining us. We ran long here. Shocking.
Thank you, guys.
But thank you, bro. Is today did the final episode of 15 Minutes of Marvel come out today?
It comes out tomorrow, so it'll come out on Friday, October 14th. Will be the final episode of 15 Minutes of Marvel. I believe that puts me at 188 episodes for that podcast. Wow. Life is busy, and unfortunately, a podcast gotta go. So that's the one. But I cover all kinds of Marvel stuff. I've done some really fun watch-alongs. So if you're looking to fill your time with some Marvel movie commentary, I got a lot of good episodes out there.
Nice.
Absolutely. Can confirm he does. He has a lot of great stuff going on over there at 15 Minutes of Marvel. Of course, man. Thank you for having us on that show a couple different times. Always having
Yeah.
fun. And, I'm sure it'll come back in some form or fashion, like, by the way, I don't know if you know that. You do know this. You just found out we are now.
Yeah.
I thought this was our penultimate episode, but I can't count. So not next week, but the week after is the end of our weekly show. We are ending with House of the Dragon. And like you said, life is busy and a podcast has to go. And in the weekly form of things, it is this one. But once Wakanda Forever comes out, we'll have a review up for that. We'll get together a round table for that for sure. And we'll keep it going on, events, but it won't be a weekly basis because JRB is moving. I have 5 jobs and I'm traveling all the time and I don't sleep as it is. So, life,
too much work to work.
Evolution is a mystery. That's for Liam Crowley and only Liam Crowley. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, we've reached the end of the show. As always, there could be no show without the Iron Man variant to my right, world-famous journalist John Ross Bradford, bringing a much-needed eloquence and wit to this podcast. Thank you to Terry McIver and David Thompson for their work behind the scenes. Thank you to the HWWS WebTV family for supporting us and carrying us on the network. Most importantly, thank you to our fans that join us weekly. Whether you are watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or listening via Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, or Spotify, we appreciate you spending your time with us. And JRB is frozen, so like, follow, subscribe, and drop us a comment. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a review and give us 5 stars, if you feel we are worthy. As always, I'm TCR. I'm JRB.
I'm Ethan Simmie.
Thank you for joining episode 104 of Lights, Thunder, Action. We shall see you next time. Stay downward dogging, stay yogaing, drink water, love your